So, in your personal opinion, from what you have seen in your experience, if today a person gets his first salary, what would your advice be, or what would be you be advising Sanjay, the young Sanjay back in 2017, most probably when you got your first salary? What would you have said? Like, what should you do with your first salary?
Now, that's a really good question and very relevant to this day and age, because I am really afraid that today's generation, the Gen Zs and the Gen Alphas, I'm not sure if they are actually, thinking about saving. Buy now, pay later. That kind of BNPL concepts are there. So, right? So it's so easy. You don't even have to give anything. You just have to put your Aadhaar, PAN, and just at the flick of a button, it is done.
You have your credit
Then
line.
you don't even have to worry about paying anything now. It may be an iPad or an iPhone that is worth 1 lakh, 2 lakh. You don't have to pay anything. You just have to look at the EMI, which is 6,000 per month, right? So that is how money is just flowing out of the bank account. So my 2017 self did not have to worry about all these things because the internet was not so big and the social media was not so active. Injected marketing and targeted marketing is something that we are seeing now. So all these taken together, it's becoming very difficult for Gen Z and youngsters to save today. I would say start very early. If you are right now, if you are getting employed at 22, start at 22. And the general thumb rule, I would say, is 40-40-20. Generally, that should be the rule. Where if you are taking something on EMI, if you're buy now pay later schemes, be sure that it doesn't exceed 40% of your salary. 30 to 40% is the max to max you can accommodate in your salary, because going beyond that, it's going to be highly inefficient and you're going to be in trouble after some time, because you're not going to be able to manage your investment as well as your daily expenses. It's very easy to buy an iPhone right now. A person having 25,000 salary can actually afford an iPhone because he will do buy now pay later scheme.
Correct.
And after a few seconds, then new notifications will start hitting, ting ting ting. Rent has been deducted, EMI has been deducted, this that, and then finally you'll be left with some 8,000 to 10,000 rupees left for the entire month. The month has not even started, but your money has actually reduced. Your entire salary has come down. So EMIs are something that are actually destroying the families and economies, because it has become so easy to buy anything that is totally out of our reach. Even I've seen a lot of people buying luxury cars and really top end vehicles as well, without even being able to afford it in one shot.
It's more spontaneous buyers.
Correct. So this 40-40-20, 40% is the EMI max to max. All your fixed pay should be restricted to 40%. So if you're earning 10,000, maximum 4,000 should be your EMI. If you're earning 1 lakh, 40,000 should be your maximum towards these kind of fixed payments. Remaining 40,000 you have to immediately invest in SIPs and other instruments, because that has to be something you do immediately. Because otherwise, if it remains in your bank account, it is very high tendency that you will start spending it and it will go out of your account very soon. So immediately in the initial part of the month, you have to invest 40 into investments, maybe mutual funds. What kind of mutual fund is something I cannot say at this point, because it has to be based on market driven factors. So 40 has to go into investments, 40 has to go into, maximum 40 can go into EMIs and fixed pay, and remaining 20 is the percentage you can have for yourself, for the daily expenses, eating out, movies, and other expenses that you may have.
Hi guys, welcome to another episode of Path to Peak. And in the namaloda a young CA, and also more than that, a very close friend of Path to Peak and me as a person. We have Sanjay S in our studios joining us for Path to Peak, the next episode. Welcome, Sanjay.
Hi, Sony.
How are you doing?
I'm doing great, and I really want to thank you for asking me to come on the show.
It's actually our pleasure. So, Sanjay, നമ്മൾ ഓൾമോസ്റ്റ് കോൺടാക്ട് എനിക്ക് തോന്നുന്നു ഇപ്പോൾ ഒരു ടു ഇയേഴ്സ് കഴിഞ്ഞെന്ന് തോന്നുന്നല്ലേ?
ഓൾമോസ്റ്റ്.
ആൻഡ് ഈ 2 ഇയേഴ്സിൽ നമ്മൾ ഏകദേശം അണ്ടർ ദ സണ്ണിലുള്ള എല്ലാ ടോപ്പിക്കിനെ കുറിച്ച് സംസാരിച്ചിട്ടുണ്ട്. Like we have talked about politics, we have talked about finance, we have talked about economics, we have talked about businesses. So, ഒരു കോമൺ തീം നമ്മൾ കണ്ടിട്ടുള്ളതെന്ന് പറഞ്ഞു കഴിഞ്ഞാൽ, both of us have alignment in terms of like where should our economy be, or what should the economy look like. പക്ഷെ നമ്മൾ ചിലപ്പോഴും നമ്മളെ മനസ്സിൽ നമ്മൾ കണ്ടിട്ടുള്ള യൂട്ടോപ്യൻ സ്റ്റേറ്റിലുള്ള എക്കണോമിയിലല്ല നമ്മൾ പോയിക്കൊണ്ടിരിക്കുന്നത്. ആൻഡ് ആസ് എ ഫൈനാൻഷ്യൽ professional, most probably it's more frustrating when you see ki there are these opportunities നമുക്ക് യൂസ് ചെയ്യാൻ പറ്റുന്നത്, but governments are not utilizing it or people are not utilizing it. And especially when we have conversations, how young people are not taking up a lot of things, they're not saving on time. Like it frustrates you, maybe you more on a higher scale than it does to me. But right now we are in a state wherein every conversation that we have with a financial person, the elephant in the room is our economy.
Yeah.
അത് പറയാതെ നമുക്ക് ഒരു ഫിനാൻഷ്യൽ പ്രൊഫഷനോട് സംസാരിക്കാൻ പറ്റത്തില്ല എന്നുള്ളൊരു സിറ്റുവേഷൻ നമ്മൾ എത്തിയിരിക്കുകയാണ്. To a stage where it's actually getting to a bit scary without, driving up emotions too much. What is actually your current take on the Indian economy? Like some say we are in a recession, but we are not realizing it. Some say we are like our Indian rupee falling to this, like literally it's a nosedive, and we may not recover to what we were moving forward. Like what we see right now will be the new normal. Some people are saying that there is going to be a spot wherein the Indian economy will just go plateau. Like we will just, it's like a volcanic eruption. No one knows. But being a financial professional, seeing what all these things are happening, was all these sanctions. What is your take on Indian economy right now?
I think a lot of people have been raising this issue that India is moving towards a recession or not. So that's a question, and I think a lot of economists have got a different view on this, because some say it is a recession, but actually, if you look at what is a recession is where there are 2 consecutive quarters of shrinking, where the GDP does not grow and it just shrinks, the economy shrinks in a 2 consecutive quarters. So that is when we identify the phenomenon as a recession. Now, shrinking in the sense, it will be having majorly 3 indicators. One is the income would be collapsing, the income of the per capita income will be collapsing, and the employment will be low, and interest rates will be low. So the indicators for a recession are kind of there, but it's not quite. Yeah, we have not been shrinking. The economy has not been shrinking over the last 2 quarters. The growth has still been there. It is still the largest and the fastest growing economy on earth, one of the fastest growing economies. So recession, as of now, we can't quite say that there is a recession, but definitely there are a lot of things that the government has to do to see that we come out of this. Now, there is nothing that the Iran war is doing to help us, because we are actually a consumer economy where we are not exporting anything much, and we are largely dependent on our services and the inflow of money from NRIs. We are at a current account deficit. So if you look at the December quarter, our current account deficit. You know what is current account deficit?
No, actually.
Okay.
I would ask you.
Current account deficit is actually the net of import and export.
Okay.
So if you are in a current account deficit, that means your export is lower than your import. Yeah.
Okay.
So your CAD is actually negative, and that was around 16 billion for the quarter ended December. So that's not good. So
what's the healthy value? Like if you
it's
look
supposed to
between
be about 0.7% of your GDP. This is
Okay.
around, I think, 1.6% of your GDP. Our GDP is 4 trillion
Okay.
dollars. Our last this thing is nominal GDP is around 4.3 trillion dollars in the last assessment. So it's not healthy at all, current account deficit. And what the government is doing now is, I think we just saw what Modi ji
did.
came and announced to the citizens, right? He gave the 7
Correct.
rules. 7 he appealed to the citizens for doing 7 things, out of which some are like, you have to stop buying gold, you have to
Correct.
stop exporting, you have to stop sending out money, you have to reduce the consumption on fuel and cooking oil. And those are the major things which many of the people are not resonating with. They're not quite sure what
Happy
to
with
do.
it. Yeah.
But I think a lot of people are actually following through, because I saw a couple of posts on social media where the roads are kind of deserted in peak time. So that means people are actually trying to help. And that's a good thing, because if you look at South Korea, what happened way back, they also had this huge issue of they were falling short of their loan,
Mhm.
and they were not able to repay their loan. And at that point, all the citizens of South Korea came together and pooled the gold that they had, and they gave it to the government for a credit of their the currency. And that way, South Korea was able to actually bounce back, and they were able to repay all the loans, the international loans, and it came out of a possible recession. So that is the collective, that because that effort from the public actually gave a positive signal to all the foreign institutional investors, and they actually they got bailed out.
Okay.
So that is a collective effort of the citizens. So here also, to a certain extent, citizens are also supposed to cooperate, contribute and cooperate with the idea of the government. But right now, we are not. The first thing that the government has to do is not to ask to shrink the consumption. We actually have to make efforts to increase the inflow of capital into the country. Inflow of capital can be done in many ways. A lot of free trade agreements and meeting governments, meeting eye to eye, making waiving the taxes on certain trades, and that is where the government has to fully focus on. And instead of going behind controlling the depreciation of the currency, it's not going to help anyone. And there are many economists who say that rupee has to find its level. You cannot do anything beyond a certain point to help it be stagnant at 96 or 97, because there is only so much you can do. You cannot start releasing your forex reserves to arrest the fall of rupee, because right now there are a lot of abnormal circumstances that are going around the world. Iran war, now we thought there was a standstill, but now again there is a talk of resumption of the war, and there is nothing, no positive signal coming from the US also that they are going to stop the war. So it's all not a rosy picture when we look at it from a whole perspective. But in my personal view, I think we are not yet in a recession. We have actually seen 5 recessions in the past. When the Pakistan war had come, the China war, then COVID. Immediately after COVID, there was a recession situation, right? And then about 5 recessions have been witnessed by the Indians in the last maybe 60 to 75 years. So all those recessions, we have come out of it. So even I strongly believe that even if a recession comes up in the next, because now another issue I just want to add, because this is something that came up in the last 1 month or so. This El Nino, you've heard of El Nino, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So now the El Nino is just the smaller version of the real issue that is to come. Now we are predicting, the forecast is that it is going to be super El Nino. Now super El Nino is, you know what is El Nino?
Yes.
You know that, right?
Correct.
Yeah, so where the high pressure zone, the hot air goes up, and the sea is having cold air, so cold air comes to the vacuum. Yeah, so that kind of thing, where that is how rain happens. That's a normal thing, where what I just told you. But in the case of an El Nino, this trade wind does not come, and what is supposed to happen doesn't happen, and that's how the rain is delayed.
Yep.
The temperature goes up and the rain is delayed. So now, if you look at the statistics, if the temperature of water on the ocean water, if it goes up by 0.5 degrees, it is called an El Nino. If it is 1.5 degree, if it is up to 2 degrees, it is called a super El Nino. They are saying it is going to be 2.5 degrees increase in temperature. That is beyond super El Nino. That is what they are predicting, because the Pacific Ocean is going to rise in temperature by up to 2.5 degrees compared to last year. So we have seen what super El Nino has done in the past. I think in 1876 we had a super El Nino where about 1.5 million people lost their lives. 5 to 10 million people lost their lives. But that was in 1876. Right now it's not going to be that worse, but still, whenever a super El Nino hits a country, the food grain production, and it has a huge hit on the economy. So there is a huge prediction that is happening that super El Nino is coming. And right now we are in Trivandrum, where the temperature is not that bad and we are getting good rainfall. It looks like the monsoon is here, but it's not yet. But it's a very strange time. But in the north, they don't still have rain. It's still very hot, and the temperature, as I saw one social media post yesterday, where a guy was sitting in an auto rickshaw and he was traveling, and he was just recording the road and the auto using a thermal scanner, and he saw that the temperature on the floor is around 60. That's unbelievable, because 60 degrees, you know how hot it is when you're stepping into a room which is 30 degrees, right?
True.
And this was 60, almost double. And even if you look at the normal temperature at night, when you look at the weather forecast, the temperature is 48, 42 and all in the North India and many states. It's unbearable. So people with ACs can actually weather the heat, but not the people who are below the poverty line, people who are laborers, delivery workers, laborers, security guards. How can they survive?
Correct.
So El Nino is something that is going to devastate the economy if we are not taking immediate steps to maybe, because my worry is that if super El Nino hits India, the monsoon will get delayed.
Correct.
If that gets delayed, the crop production, because August and September are the 2 months where the irrigation is most necessarily required for the farmers. So if rain gets delayed by June, July, August, if they don't get the rain, they'll not be able to do the plants, and they'll not be able to start the
It will delay
process.
the entire.
Yeah, then the food grain production will get delayed. But I also read that the government is also sitting on a huge stockpile of rice, around 700 tons, 400 tons of rice is there. So it's almost enough to last us for a couple of months. But still, Super El Nino is another factor that has now come into the picture, which is again going to contribute towards a possible recession in the future. But I won't say we have to worry as of yet if the government plays their cards right.
That's correct.
Because one thing I would say is government has to start investing into production, value production, where some countries may need some kind of value added production, which we can identify, and we have to start producing from here. So we have to move towards a value oriented manufacturing economy. Only then we will
It
have
can
some
come
role.
out of it. The reason why I was just smiling when you said it, is because I was going through one reporter, he was reporting on this and he was talking about this. And one of the guys who was invited, or he was talking on this reporter, he was basically saying it's actually a fictional concept. He was saying that it is pretty much related to like how we say greenhouse gas emissions, how we say, the Antarctica is, or you have the Arctic icebergs, which are, dissolving and everything.
Right.
Because what people are not ready to accept yet is that things are moving at a very, very bad state environmentally. Like whatever we
True.
have done is hitting us back at like 120% back. But people are not ready to accept it yet. So as you said, as soon as heat hits up, what do? We install more air cons. We are not talking about more trees. And that
Very
is just exponentially increasing. And that's why when you said about this concept, right? To be fair, I did not think about the economical aspects of it. I was more thinking about, yes, it would delay a few things, but I was more concerned about what would happen to states which are already going through, no monsoon seasons, or which are going through high humidity levels. For them not having rain for another 2 months, or for them to have this temperature rise, is going to be of such a big impact. But people are not even ready to accept that. They're just saying that they're predicting it. And he was even on that chat, he was making this joke ki, നിങ്ങൾ മഴ എത്ര വട്ടം പറയാറുണ്ട് കാലാവസ്ഥാ കേന്ദ്രം മഴ ഇന്ന് പെയ്യും പക്ഷെ ഇന്ന് പെയ്യാറുണ്ടോ? അപ്പൊ ഇതൊക്കെ അവരൊരു ഊഹം, ലൈക്ക് അവരൊരു ഊഹത്തിൽ പറയുന്നു. സംഭവിക്കാനും സംഭവിക്കാതിരിക്കാനും സാധ്യതകളുണ്ട്. ആൻഡ് നമ്മൾ ജനതയെ വി ഷുഡ് നോട്ട് മേക്ക് ദം ഗോ ഓൺ എ ഹൈ അലർട്ട്. അതുകൊണ്ട് നമ്മൾ ഒരിക്കലും ഇങ്ങനത്തെ ന്യൂസുകൾ പടരുത്തത്. സോ ഈവൻ ദേ ആർ സ്കെയർഡ് ടു സ്പ്രെഡ് ദിസ് ന്യൂസ് ടു പീപ്പിൾ ആൻഡ് സേ ki, let's not just talk about this disaster at hand, but what do we do to prevent it? അങ്ങനത്തെ ഒരു കോൺവെർസേഷൻസ് കാണാറില്ല. And that is exactly what I felt with the economic emergency, or whatever you want to call what Modi ji did. Because as you pointed out, Korea ചെയ്ത സിസ്റ്റത്തിലായാലും right now India is not in the same map. The PM comes out of everything, literally out of everything he comes out, and ഗോൾഡ് മേടിക്കരുത്, ട്രാവൽ ചെയ്യരുത്, വർക്ക് ഫ്രം ഹോം ചെയ്യണം. ലൈക്ക് ഈ ഓരോ പോയിന്റേഴ്സ് പറയുന്നുണ്ട്. ഐ എം ലൈക്ക്, വാട്ട് ഈസ് ദ ഓൾട്ടർനേറ്റീവ്? ഇഫ് യു ആർ ആസ്കിങ് സമ്മൺ ഡോണ്ട് ഈറ്റ് റൈസ്, okay, so what should I eat? If you are saying don't buy gold, yes, but then there is going to be like, ഗോൾഡ് മേടിക്കുന്ന ഒരിക്കലും സഞ്ജയ് പറഞ്ഞിട്ടുള്ള ഈ ബിലോ പ്രോവർട്ടി ലൈനിലുള്ള ആൾക്കാരല്ലായിരിക്കും. അത് മേടിക്കുന്ന മിഡിൽ ക്ലാസ്സോ അപ്പർ മിഡിൽ ക്ലാസ്സോ അരിസ്റ്റോക്രാറ്റ്സോ ആയിരിക്കും. So if you are not buying gold, what are you going to buy? They are not going to just keep their money
Correct.
somewhere wherein it's of no use and a returns illa. They are going to buy something.
No, even personally, buying gold at this point, I would consider gold as a dead asset at this point, because but the problem is the market, the stock market and the securities market has become so unpredictable that people don't want to take too much of risk doing research. Because even if you do whatever research, you go through the balance sheet, you go through the credentials and the whatever reported figures, ultimately the market will not move in the way you think. So there is so much of unpredictability currently going on, and it is being affected by the outside geopolitical issues as well. Iran war, someone
Totally
bombs Dubai or
unpredictable.
UAE, and some supply
Correct.
chain gets affected, and finally we are at a situation where even a very high standing company or a PSU will also come down in the stock market. So it is too unpredictable. So people don't want to take a risk with that particular stock, and they just want to put it in. Gold is the most easiest, safest and the easiest asset where we can park money. Some say it's called a lie detector, where because in the ancient times also 1 ounce of gold used to get you, in the Roman Empire they used to get that there is a toga. There is something called toga where the Julie Caesar and
okay,
all
yes,
they used to
yes,
wear.
yes.
So that and the leather belt and all those things you used to get for 1 ounce of gold. Even today, if you look at it,
Correct.
1 ounce is 31 grams, right? It can easily get you a lot of luxurious amenities in today's world. But the value of gold has changed. So if you say 1 rupee is this much, it may not be the real actual value of it. But the gold is actually, even today and in the past, in the ancient times and today, 1 ounce of gold is valued at 1 ounce of gold. So
Correct.
ultimately, the rupee or any currency may deviate or fluctuate or appreciate or depreciate in any direction. But the value of gold is finally the one parameter or the benchmark based on which you can evaluate the value of any currency. So that is why it's, in a way, in some economists called it a lie detector. So ultimately, people are actually too scared to take a risk in the stock market, especially the retail investors, and they're just trying to park their money in gold and as well as real estate.
Yes.
But I would say at this point, both these assets are not going up or down in the in the in the way in which we think. Yeah, real estate also. If you put money into the real estate, if you think you can sell it in a point of your emergency, you may not actually get the price you are actually willing to get. You may not. People will think you are in desperation, and you will not get the price. So finally, you will end up in a losing situation. So ultimately, we have to look at what best we can do, because right now we have to think beyond Indian boundaries, and also there are now many facilities where some stock brokers are giving you access to US markets as well. It has to be a planned approach. So you can also park
Change your
money into
strategy.
you can diversify, because putting all your money into gold and finally gold tomorrow crashes, because I am not sure if
This
gold
price will hold up.
this price, definitely there are a lot of predictions that the gold price is going to increase, but there are many predictions that it will crash as well. So right now gold is
Agreed.
not a very fair place where you can park your entire money and expecting it to be safe, even real estate for that matter, because tomorrow, I'm not saying real estate will depreciate, but the problem is, what if it remains stagnant?
Correct.
Because right now, if you are going to sell a property, you're not getting the price. But if you're trying to buy a property,
It will
it's
be
very
a higher.
expensive.
Correct.
So
And
that
also
kind of a
with
situation is there.
no major foreign investments coming in, real estate will have a very big impact.
I would say because US yield, the interest, treasury yield, and everything has been increased. US interest rates have gone up. They have been increased. That is why all the FIS have started pulling money out, and they are putting in the treasury bonds and other things. So that is one of the reasons why money is flowing out. Second thing is, government policies are also not that friendly, because if you look at 2024, they bumped up the capital gain tax from 10% to 12.5%. That itself was a huge, negative thing for the FIAs. And they also removed the exemption as well. And the short-term capital gain was also increased to 20% from 15. So all these things came together, and FIS lost a lot of confidence. And even if you look at, even though, since I'm a chartered accountant, I can tell you about the GST aspect as well. There have been a lot of amendments in law that have been brought about by the government, which are retrospective. So some judgment will be coming from a Supreme Court or a High Court, which is giving a lot of favor to the taxpayers. But the government, it may be based on a wrong drafting or error in drafting or whatever. It may not be error, but it's a lack of understanding, interpretation issues, whatever. But the government views it as a revenue loss, and they want to amend that error right from the inception of the act from 2017. So this whole process of litigation and the cost and everything is laid to waste when government goes and does this kind of an amendment. There is no predictability. This was first done in Vodafone case. If you remember Vodafone, there was an income tax case in Vodafone where there was a error in the income tax act based on which it's not technical error, it's a drafting thing where the act did not accommodate that kind of a transaction, where Vodafone was doing a lot of outside transfer of share ownership in the company through the Cayman Islands, and that was actually how this came about. And finally, the government did a retrospective amendment. It was upheld by the Supreme Court also. So that is how it was initially started in the tax arena. But now it has become very frequent. In the last 3 years, you can see 3 retrospective amendments which are having drastic impact on the real estate as well as on the GST front. So all these things taken together, and look at the people also, civic sense is also lacking in many places. We can see how people are on the train and everything. So all these in a collective sense, I would say it's not a very good picture for anyone who is coming to India and witnessing it for their own. I'm not saying it's bad, it's entirely bad, but there are very areas where the government can actually improve. They have to stop doing all this retrospective amendments. Maybe spend more time in drafting the act and doing planned amendments. Like you can put an amendment announcement today saying that
But
this
then
will
there
be
is a
done since from the next June or next whatever in X days we will implement this. That at least allows the company to realign their business model and get adjusted to that. That is how it should be. You cannot suddenly come and say Supreme Court ne aisa kaha, then I will do this.
do for the last 2 years.
That is not right. So it should be more investable. And the government having increased long-term capital gain tax is also something that is not something that should have been done at this point. So all these are collectively leading, a drop in the hope for FIAs. And we have also missed the bus on the AI boom.
Correct.
That is another reason.
No OEM manufacturing in that sector also.
Correct.
And this is also the spot wherein our government are so much dependent on the tax revenue for
Correct.
the governments to run, that they are like, I can make 1,000 crores by doing this tax. Let's just go ahead and do it. Rather than saying that, let me invest it in a manufacturing, or like a government, maybe a government and a private equity coming together and running something and making a revenue out of it. That is the space wherein, as I was stating before also, we don't discuss about alternatives. We are just going by what is the standing norm. I can make money by doing taxing. Let me just follow that trend. It's not like, okay, so should the government be investing in something which can provide us a higher yield and we are not taxing people on it? And the same way, when Modi ji came out and said that, okay, don't do these things, what I was expecting is he would say, Acha, gold medikanda, but invest in this, which is Indian made. So നമ്മുടെ എക്സ്പോർട്ട് അല്ലെങ്കിൽ നമ്മുടെ ഒരു ഇന്ത്യൻ പ്രൊഡക്റ്റിനുള്ളൊരു ബൂം കിട്ടിയേനെ. Don't travel, but maybe do this. Like, give alternatives, because when you say don't do X, Y, Z, people have the tendency to say, okay, so what should I do? വളരെ ഈസി ആയിട്ട് പറയാൻ പറ്റുന്ന ഒരു കാര്യമാണ്, ലെറ്റ്സ് പ്രൊമോട്ട് വർക്ക് ഫ്രം ഹോം. ബട്ട് വർക്ക് ഫ്രം ഹോമിന്റെ ഇംപ്ലിക്കേഷൻസ് ടു ഹൗ മെനി സെക്ടേഴ്സ് ഇറ്റ് ഹാപ്പൻസ്. If one office building is occupied only 50%, that means one, we are paying for dead assets. Like infrastructure, അതിനു വേണ്ടി നമ്മൾ pay ചെയ്യണം.
Correct.
Second, how many small vendors are dependent on, especially when you go to an IT park, how many coffee shops are running just because of that IT park?
Correct.
അവിടെ 50% ആൾക്കാർ കുറയുന്നുണ്ട്. People are still drinking coffee or tea, but at their home. They are not spending it on the local vendor. So even when we say that go and do work from home, we have to agree to the fact that there are people sitting on those roads or people sitting in that shops who are expecting revenue. How do we offset that?
Right from COVID, we have seen how work from home has been operating, right?
Correct.
And even though there are two aspects to that work from home model, sometimes work from home doesn't work out. It all depends on how dedicated and sincere the employee is. And you are never able to track the employee's performance in an active manner. And I've spoken to a lot of managers, and all of them are unanimously saying that work from home is never a very comfortable model. Half of the time, almost 75% of your time is spent on calls for asking for update.
Correct.
Each thing you want an update for that, because you are in a in a different geographic situation location where you may not know what the other person is doing. For each update, because your manager, the manager's manager, will be asking for an update, and for that update to be given, he will have to have the update. So a lot of time is being spent, a valuable productive time is being wasted on giving updates just to keep the manager updated. Maybe if you had an automated software or something on that front, maybe it could have been the time could have been saved. But work from home, if that model is implemented, there is a lot of wasteful time that is spent on updations and team interactions, which can be avoided. So and apart from that, there is a lot of toll on the psychological this thing, because sitting at home 9 to 5, and I don't say it would be 9 to 5, because I have seen many companies where the 5 gets extended up to 9. Correct. And there is no boundary. So work from home is something that I actually don't prefer or suggest, but companies have been tending to find this very nice, and even they they say that they justify it by saying it is a thing that you can actually have a personal life as well, because you can be sitting at home. But how long can you sit at home and do this without having to visit the office?
One interesting thing which one of my actually team members told me was, he actually feels happy when he gets up, dresses up to come to the office, and he's in the office. Because what his perspective was, when I wake up, I dress and I come to the office, that journey to the office
is also very important.
He's like, and then the journey back home, because he's turning off himself
Correct.
from the work culture when he arrives at his home. But when you're working from home, exactly as you pointed out before, you log in, you basically wake up, brush, log
Correct.
in. Like there is no channel to switch on.
Correct.
And similar to that, when you're done with your work, you're basically going to the kitchen and you're cooking, or you're going and
Correct.
doing
Correct.
some
Correct.
activity.
Correct.
There is no cut-off time for your brain. But
And your
parallelly,
brain cannot, it'll be, confined to the four walls of your
correct,
room, and it's not going to be easy because you'll be converted to an introvert kind of thing if you keep doing this for a long time, because you'll be very reluctant to go out into society. I mean, if this is a work from home goes on for too long.
so
I may be wrong, because there may be other, someone who advocates work from home is better. And there are a lot of people who actually enjoy work from home, because
correct.
those with children and other things, they actually find a lot of time, especially during the summer vacation time. They find a lot of time to spend with their
It's
children.
easier to
But
manage.
how it affects the productivity, I'm not sure. That's something that that may be subjective as well. But I think work from home should be a hybrid model, where maybe alternate days, or at least once in
Correct.
at least 3 days a week, it should be actually work from premises and not
And
work
then
from
2
home.
days
Yeah,
out.
maybe something of that sort. It should be a hybrid thing where it is, a win-win. But going back to work from home just because the forex is depreciating, I'm really not in favor of
line.
that
Correct.
particular ideology.
Because that's where I was thinking, like, you're basically going to cripple the economy also by not having your local vendors enjoy the benefits of people coming to an office.
Correct.
So, are we saying that by saving on fuel and hence crude oil not being imported, we are ready to also cripple a businessman who is running his coffee shop or whatever it is, his restaurant, and now he has his EMIs to pay? So, like, this is where I always
I felt the government has actually, there is actually huge pressure on the government, because our main three imports, as you know, are crude, gold, and electronics, right?
correct.
All three are imported,
Yes.
and that is a huge value. Gold, as you know, the volume has never come. The volume has remained the same, but the value has gone up, because of which the outflow of dollar has also been on the high. But the
Correct.
volume has never been increased. I mean, it has increased because of the tendency of all citizens to invest in gold assets,
Yes.
because of the unpredictable stock market, as I said earlier. But these are the three imports that are very highly seen in the last few years. And crude, it was 85%. 85% of your total crude was imported. Your needs of the country, almost 85% of the total needs was imported. Now it has become around 89 to 90%, and may go up to 95 also in the future. So how can we stop that is what we have to see. We are already doing exploration on all fronts, but still that is never enough. We are not
Correct.
a oil producing entity. We have to, India has actually looked into other renewable energy sources like solar and wind. Solar and wind are the two major things where we can actually invest, and government has actually pulled back all the subsidies and the tax exemptions that were available for solar. Now there is no exemption for building a windmill. Earlier it used to be there. So those are the kind of things that they should not have stopped. Now who will
Correct.
build a wind farm if there is no tax exemption? Earlier it used to be 100% exempt in the first few years, and then it used to be staggered down. But now all those have been
All those
removed. So now there is no incentive for a person to invest something in a wind farm or a windmill. It's not easy. So these are things that government should not have touched upon, because they should have kept it as it is. Because so many people I know in the south were investing in windmills,
into windmills.
and that was actually contributed into the electrical net.
True. See, this is where the bold statement that I would make is, right now we are being asked as citizens of a nation to compromise on our lifestyle because our bureaucrats and our politicians were not able enough, and that's the bold statement I would make, were not able enough to predict that we are going to be in a situation where importing is not going to be the answer and we are not self-sufficient. So even after having the banner of Make in India for the last, I don't know, 10 years plus, we have still not reached a point where, as you pointed out, three major commodities that we are utilizing have had a substantial growth or internal growth mechanism wherein it's like we can support ourselves. It has not happened.
Yeah.
And because of their lack of planning or strategizing, now the citizens have been asked to strip back and sit back and actually say that, okay, you can't travel to any more locations because you know what, we as a government failed to plan for this. This is where it gets frustrating, right? Where it's like, okay, we have planned for almost everything and we failed, and now the citizens have to take the heat. And it's always like that. And that's where taxation also comes. And with taxation, it's one of those spaces where I'm not from a financial background, right? So I always have very layman questions. Like as a normal man, I feel we are being penalized to pay tax. And what I mean by that, I think I discussed this with before also. If I'm paying, if I'm getting paid 1 crore, let's just put it into that aspect, right? If I'm getting paid revenue of 1 crore, I have to pay a tax equivalent to that 1 crore payment or a 1 crore revenue. Now I'm a person who pays zero tax because my income is below the tax threshold, which is 12 lakhs. Now this person who has got 1 crore of revenue, yes, he is getting 1 crore because of something he's doing, right? He's not getting as a gift.
Yeah.
And he's paying far more tax than the person who is paying no tax. What is the difference between these two people when they enter a toll road? If the toll is for 12 rupees, the person who has paid 0 rupees tax is also paying 10 rupees as toll. This person who has paid, I don't know, maybe 25 lakhs or 30 lakhs in income tax is also going to pay 10 rupees on toll. If this guy buys a car, let's say his car is 20 lakhs car, he pays the tax, the road tax for 20 lakhs car. This guy who has paid 25 lakhs in income tax is also going to pay the same income tax, same tax on the car. So what I'm trying to say is, where is the benefit of paying tax when I think we are being double taxed almost every day?
Yeah, that's a good perspective that you have added to this. But there is another way. I mean, the toll tax is something that you have to pay for using the road.
Correct.
So the government looks at each of the
Commodity
passengers as as equals, because there are, whether it is a bicycle or I mean, if you're looking at two-wheelers, they are exempted. But if you're looking at a small car or a big car or luxurious car or a BMW, whatever, they are all considered as equals because they're all on four wheels and they're going to be driving on the road. They're all considered equals. So that is why we don't see, definitely there is a change in pricing based on the size of the car.
Yes.
As you have seen,
LMV.
many tolls
Yep.
have got heavy vehicles, light vehicles, and then medium-sized vehicles have got different toll taxes. And based on your round journey, then it will
Correct.
be lesser. But they consider each car as equal based on your they don't look at the wealth. The wealth aspect comes into play when the road tax and other aspects are collected at the time of purchase. So
Correct.
there it will be on the value. So definitely the person who is buying a luxury car will have to shell out a larger sum of money for road tax
Correct.
and other
And
tax.
that's where it's very odd for me. Let's say we put a flat 5% tax, right? If a person buys a 10 lakhs car, he pays 5% of the 10.
Right.
But if a person buys a 60 lakhs car,
Correct.
he pays 5%
there
of 60,
I
right?
agree with you. There is a disparity on that.
Correct.
But that's something that the government will not be willing, because as you can see now, if you look at that our whole economy or a country is structured in such, the reforms and the structural legal structure is in such a way that the wealthy become wealthier.
Correct.
And the
Poor-
poor
correct.
may not get wealthier at that point, because
Correct.
if you look at how much Indians are now in 2025, there are around 1,600 people are in the net worth bracket of more than 1,000 crore, and the total wealth of these 1,688, I think these individuals, if you look at the total net worth together, it's 166 lakh crore. That's almost nearing the GDP, almost 30 to 40% of the GDP. That's such a huge figure. Only 1,688 individuals are contributing to this much of a net worth. And the government is, I mean, if you look at many schemes, like there is the product linked incentive PLI scheme of the government, where they incentivize production and export of certain sectors, like food sector is there. Then many other manufacturing sectors have been incentivized through product linked incentive, like cashew is also having that if it is organic.
Okay.
So that kind of a incentivized scheme is there. But if a person like me, if I am going to start a manufacturing unit of maybe 40 people and a very small scale unit, and if I go and ask for that small the PLI, I may not even be considered at some point, because I'm not even making a dent in the export sector, or not even making
not
a dent
big
in the
enough.
manufacturing. Yeah, I'm not
Correct.
big enough. But if someone like JSW Steel or someone like Adani goes and applies for this, it is a very high chance that they will get it. And there are certain instances where I have seen that even some states are ready to give you complete refund of SGST, that state GST, complete refund of whatever is the investment you have made. The SGST component will be refunded to you, not in cash, but the liability that you get will be offset against the this SGST refund. So those kind of incentives are also being offered by states now. states are also competing with each other. States
They
like
want
Tamil Nadu,
manufacturing to come
Karnataka,
in.
and
Yep.
Andhra are all competing who sets up the unit there so that
Correct.
the employment goes to that state. So they're also competing. It's good, but ultimately it has to be country first. So we are seeing a lot of reasons. The law and the economy is structured in such a way that the rich get richer and the poor remain poor in some cases. But the government has to do things to equalize the playing field. They have to level the playing field in such a way that even a small player, he should also
Can
get,
come in.
because a small person can become big only if the incentives are equally given to all of them together. Because if you give JSW Steel an incentive and you are not incentivizing the smaller player, how will that smaller player get big at any point?
He will not come in
The
there.
price also will never be comparable, because the JSW, I mean, I'm just taking example because
The
JSW, I
quantity.
have not taken any money or anything from them, but JSW is just one example I've seen in the papers in the last few months where I mean, they're also a big company. So when you're giving incentives like this to the big companies, the smaller players will never be able to match their pricing to the big players, and that's how they will be pushed out of the market slowly. So
That's slowly comes
PLI
in.
and other such incentives, whatever incentive the government is coming up with, they have to be democratic with it. They have to give it equally to all the players in
Vendors
the
and
market,
suppliers in there.
industry.
Correct.
That has to be the first thing that the government has to do.
But again, like we are actually talking about the creamy layer, as you said, like almost 1,600 people, and then we are talking about the bottom layer, or when I say bottom, the not so privileged class in there. But there is this very big chunk of middle class and
Correct.
upper middle class that sits in there that gets impacted by what I was saying before, this taxation issue,
Correct.
because they are salaried.
Yeah.
We are talking about salaried people now, so they are getting taxed on that salary, and the more salary they get more taxed on it, and then they have to pay taxes on the commodities that they use each day. So that's the spot wherein I was like, is it some kind of double tax? And like, how do we create a society? Because like we will agree to the fact that India has most probably one of the most lowest tax paying population. When you look at especially the middle class and upper middle class, like people don't like paying tax. People try to evade tax. That is because there is no benefit of paying tax. As you said, if you look at the nation first concept, yes, if I pay tax, my nation develops. But if I would have paid the exact same tax, let's say in Australia or in US, I get health benefits, I get other privileges, I get superannuations, I get pension benefits, I get so many other benefits. I walk out onto the roads, I get parks which are neat and clean for me to use. Like there are facilities and amenities that are provided. But over here, if I have revenue, I've been penalized by putting tax on it. And that's also one of the reasons that I really strongly believe that people who are breaking, who are getting into the class where like I have good money with me and I want to now have a luxurious life without getting penalized for it, they move to Dubai. One of the easiest moving mechanism for them is move to Dubai. You don't get taxed. Your income tax department is not looking upon to you when you buy a Lamborghini, or when you buy a Porsche, you don't get 2 raids into your offices.
Yeah.
Like people actually want you to buy those products, but here people are scared. If I buy a Lamborghini right now, I'm expecting an income tax form or income tax people to be reaching out within the next 2 to 3 months asking, where is your source, how did you get this, what happened? While compliance is good, I strongly believe that there should be some kind of uh like an award, like there should be some kind of a balance where you say that, you know what, you have paid 25 lakhs in tax this year, let's give you some kind of a benefit, rather than saying that, as you were saying before, you have paid the most tax in the state, good on you. But what is the benefit? Like there
I
should be some
completely
kind
agree
of a
with you
balance.
in terms of, we are a developing country actually, and if you compared with the
Correct.
US as well as Australia, which I don't believe you can call it developing, they're all developed countries. So they have established themselves. They've actually started the race quite before us.
Correct.
We started our race very late, and that's why we are seeing a lot of disparity in our policies. But even at the same time, our tax collection is also not so low. We are also, nudging towards 40%, even though on an average it would be around 20 to 30% on an average for a salaried individual who is earning more than 50. I do agree that US is also having a lot of employee friendly or taxpayer friendly policies, where I also know that they are having unemployment packages where they're giving food stamps to unemployed people who, even if they get laid off by some company, for the intervening period till which they get employed again, they'll be having some food stamps and other aid packages from the government, free of cost at that point. So, but you have to file the necessary forms and you have to apply for all those things. But at least that feature is there. In our country, I feel that is also missing. And as you said, this double taxation concept is definitely there. Earlier, we used to be the government used to be completely dependent on direct taxes. Direct tax is the tax that you actually pay. They pay directly. Like if you are paying tax on your salary, that is called
Okay.
direct tax.
Okay.
Indirect tax is something that you pay indirectly. If you buy a loaf of bread from the market, you're actually
The
paying
tax
tax on
applied.
that. You may not
Correct.
even know it, but when you get the bill, you will see that there is a tax applied on the bill at the last moment. So
Correct.
the price that you see on the counters, the price that you see on the products that are on the counters, on the racks, that is actually inclusive of the GST. The GST and whatever else price is there. Indirect tax can actually affect a poor and a well-off person and a other than well-off person
Exact same.
equally. Everybody has to pay. If I buy a loaf of bread, even if I am a billionaire, also I will be paying the same tax as
Correct.
a homeless person. So that is actually there. That disparity is definitely there. And what can we do to negate it? Is we can only remove that product from the GST, because we cannot say till this much you will not be liable for GST. It's too difficult, because then there will be a lot of manipulation and exploitation that happens at that level. People, just like how the BPL cards got exploited in the past.
True.
You can't have a income linked pricing for the indirect taxes, because then there will be a lot of exploitation. How will you track all those things? So then we have to go back to BPL card concept, where it is completely verified. Income is 100% foolproof verification is there. That way we can at least help the poor and the unfortunate people and the homeless people to a certain extent. But as you said, I do agree that government has a lot of room for improvement when it comes to benefits for taxpayers.
Correct. Correct.
But that is
And
definitely not there.
and this kind of like, I think there's a very big gap also in people being educated about these things. I don't know if you have gone through this, sort of if you have informed yourself about Cockroach Janata Party.
Yeah.
Like there's literally a new movement that has been coming forward. And if you look at what things that they're mentioning in their manifesto, I'm looking at it and I'm like, they're basically asking for things to sustain, plus they're questioning the system. And
I
yeah,
saw a Cockroach Janata Party. That was a surprising initiative, because it got the way in which their
got publicized.
their public following. I would say I would compare Instagram followers with public following, because that is one of the main source of information for them. So Instagram following, I think they shot up and surpassed even
Correct.
Congress and BJP parties
Correct.
in just a matter of few days. But the problem was they started asking for big, like TJ's the resignation, and they were asking for to vote them to power in the next election and all those things. They should have started at the grassroots level by looking at the local. I think their account has now been hacked, and their Twitter account has been blocked.
Yeah, Twitter account is blocked.
A lot
Yes.
of gagging has happened on that, and the hacking also. I don't know from which section or which person has done it, but their account has been hacked, and I am informed that that person is no longer having that. Abhijit is no longer having an
Okay.
access to his IG profile. So, but from a very broad perspective, this thing was that he should have taken it a bit slow, because your public support is definitely there, but you should have started at the ground level. Immediately asking for resignation and all those things were something that you could have done once you have actually proven yourself.
Correct.
It was a very good initiative, and I'm not saying it is a good initiative. We need alternatives, but you have to walk the talk.
It's more like people want to vent. The
Correct.
thing is, like, people just are getting
Very
too
frustrated with the
It's either a black or a white. You go for black or white. That's it. There is no okay. That's actually wrong. You should not be doing it, because when I looked at one of the manifesto points, it was saying that the chief justice or the judiciary people, they should not get a Rajya Sabha seat. And I'm thinking, you have got pillars of our constitution. You have got legislative. You have got judiciary. You have got our bureaucracy. So I'm like, yes, judiciary is actually above your legislative. They should never be like a judge
It is true,
retires
yeah.
and it goes back into the into the Rajya Sabha. I'm like, isn't that actually the norm? Like, how did it even happen? Like, you have people who are resigning as judges or who are retiring as judges, and then they're coming back and they're sitting in Rajya Sabha. I'm like, there has to be some kind of like
True.
this line that is not wrong, because I know, like, the Chief Election Commission of India, he cannot hold a lot of roles once he retires, or he or she. I thought that would be the same thing for judiciary also, but then I was going through it. I'm like, hold on, actually, that's true. There are a lot of judicial people who have come into the
Yeah.
legislative part of it. So while, as you said, yes, they're asking for certain things which are too big to achieve. Like they're saying
At
there
least
would
at
be
this stage.
correct. They're saying 50% reservation for this,
Yeah.
50% for that. We will give free education. Like there are a lot of
Any
things.
I think one of the parts in their manifesto was that if somebody was jumping to another party, he'll be
They will
banned
be
from
disqualified.
from
But
standing any election.
correct. And that again, it's like that portion most probably a lot of the portions which are they're saying, I'm like, that's actually a bit debatable.
Yeah.
Because what if you join a particular political party and then you realize this is
Not
not
my
the
cup of tea,
political
yeah.
party that I thought about it? You have to make the switch.
There should be some, yeah, but you cannot have a very draconian rule for those kind of transfers. There should be
Correct.
some process and clear, transparent way in which it is done. Just like an employee leaves an organization, joins another, there should be a
Exactly.
certain
There should be a
process
notice
and
period. There should
logical
be
reasoning for it. But I felt it was too much, too fast, too quick. It had to be done in a very logical manner, in a very slow manner, because you have to gain the trust, because
correct.
anybody can advertise anything and speak a lot of things and keep a lot of demands and make a lot of claims, but walking the talk and practicing what you preach is very important. So
Correct.
that was not done.
Because
It
in none
started.
of the manifesto things were they talking about how
Correct.
is the revenue going to come in.
Correct.
Like you want to provide free education, how are you going to meet the cost?
Because you don't just want to end up as a viral topic.
Correct.
Because you know what happens when you're viral. You just die down after a few days or maximum a couple of weeks. That's the ultimate life cycle of any viral moment.
Correct.
You become viral, then after a few
And then
weeks you
you
just die down, then you are nobody. So instead of becoming just a viral moment, the way you can sustain is, even now they can do that. In my personal view, I would say they have to take things slow, maybe reach out to all the local. That's what our the actor who Vijay, who won in
Vijay,
the
yes.
Tamil Nadu elections, had done, right. He started preparations 4 years back. He
I
was
think his preparation was even before that.
even before that.
He
Yeah,
was
maybe he was.
already getting in
Otherwise,
there.
it was not easy to have such a surprising and astonishing victory in such a legacy kind of a
What
election.
is your actually take on people with zero political experience coming and running a state? Like, what's your general take on it? Like, irrespective of let it be Vijay or even let it be irrespective of a person who's going to be the PM of the country, has never been a union minister, but all of a sudden becomes the PM of the country. Like,
I
what's your
don't think
take
I'm
on
the
stuff like
right person for quoting on this, but generally I feel that any person, it's all about their connect with the citizens of any particular area or jurisdiction where he's contesting. First, you have to, gain the trust of the citizens, because gaining the trust doesn't mean simply giving some money or giving some freebies. That is only temporary. Maybe you can gain the trust of rural population by giving some free, because for them, getting nothing is worse than getting something, right? So they'll at least prefer to get something, whatever is the freebie that is being given. He has not given, he has given. At least
So I
let me
will
vote
vote
for
with
him.
that.
At least he has given me this. So that kind of this thing is not correct in my view. But gaining the trust means actually making some change in the society, where you are actually betterment of the infrastructure should be done, increasing the facilities, actually solving their problems. Like somebody has got some problems in certain area or certain panchayat, if you are able to actually, if you, in the sense, whoever is the person whom you are asking for, if that person is actually able to
Exactly.
solve the problems, I think that is how the word of mouth trust also starts spreading, because that person who he has helped will also start speaking to others also. He is good, this. So that kind of a word of mouth approval also starts spreading like wildfire. And I think that's how many jurisdictions in our state we have seen certain
New people coming up.
yeah,
Because a lot of the time, what I
underdogs
felt,
have won the election.
and especially in Kerala also, a lot
Yeah.
of the constitutions that played out. But one good thing that I found about the Kerala elections I'm a little bit more inclined towards politics. I really like learning about how politics or how politicians do their tactics, how
Okay.
to win. Because a lot of the time it's manipulation. It's simple sheer manipulation. Because if you look at the amount of money that they're spending on running an election campaign,
It's insane.
I'm like, that's actually not like it doesn't make sense to me. Like for a person to spend almost 1 crore on his election campaign, which lasts for less than 20 to 25 days, I'm like, that numbers don't make sense to me. Like, what are you doing? Because if you look at three people averaging in each constitution, we have got 140 constitutions in Kerala. Let's say each one of them spends at least 70, like, don't even spend 1 crore. They're saying 1 crore, but let's say they spend almost 50 lakhs. between the three prominent candidates in that one constitution, that's 1.5 crores. So you look at 140 constitutions having it,
It's
and then you
insane
have
amount of
got
money.
Lok Sabha, sorry, you have got Kerala Assembly, you have got Lok Sabha, you have got Panchayat elections. The amount of money that is being spent just electing the right person to lead you, and that right person, if they become the CM, and this is where I get a little bit concerned that the person who's becoming the CM has never been part of politics plus bureaucrats, because running a state, it's bureaucrats. Like bureaucrats are the one who are sitting behind with the key to the golden door, and you have never worked with them in a way that you should have. Now you come in, you have all these new ideals to do, but the bureaucrats are going to run it.
Correct.
So I always have a doubt, like when people new to the power rise to the state of the CM or the PM roles, because they are the lights. You can of course be leading a small ministry, but not the entire state. Anyhow, it's for the time to tell us like
But
what the
if you look at
decision was.
Gujarat has been one of the examples where businessmen have also instigated and pushed the reforms in the state.
Yes,
Like many of the reforms, many of the business reforms that happened, the legal reforms and whatever policies that are coming there, they're all actually hand in hand with the businessmen, because they are also because if you look at how business operate, the business leaders and the businessmen actually have an idea of how the world works, or how certain sectors are
how the
operating in a
market
global
is
stage.
feeling.
Yeah. So those, because a politician or a bureaucrat may not entirely be able to get a sense of how a certain industry works. So if you are actually able to structure your policies around these businessmen, people who are well informed, I think that will be leading to the betterment of the state, because you cannot take a unified approach to all this and just say, I'll do this, whatever happens later, I'll see after it comes. So that kind of an attitude cannot work, because we have seen how it works in Gujarat, where they've actually improved. And if you look at, they are one of the top economies in the state right now, because they are, whatever development happens first, it happens. Even if you look at the bullet train now, they are trying to
Correct.
get it there. So Ahmedabad is one of the top areas where development is
Investments,
happening like
yes.
anything. And all the policies are also structured in such a way that they help the businesses first, and then comes the other compliances and other areas of legal matters.
That's where I have personally always felt Telangana and Gujarat are the capitalist economy in the Indian socialist economy, because they are very much business focused.
Correct.
And that's exactly how they have been pushing also development to their states. Only when you have most probably Tata set up a car manufacturing unit in your state, would you have railways connecting it to it. You would have
Correct.
trucks moving in and out. You would have people doing it. But sometimes people become too scared, and they are like scared of having rich people or businessmen come in, because they're going to steal away things. Of course they're going to run something for profit, but parallelly what can the state also benefit? That's where a lot of the states just stay out of the race, and they're like, we want more control of our state than just giving it away to an Adani or an Ambani, and then sit back and enjoy what happens from there on. Again, like this entire concept also is very interesting, right? Like wherein you're like, at what point do we cross over from being uh, I don't know, a non-capitalist economy to a capitalist economy? And US right now, where they are, the way they have been supported by the companies around them, like how they have just stuck together to make sure that US becomes one of the superpowers. I don't know, maybe it is time for India also to start exploring.
US is one of the countries where their policies are completely or majorly driven by
The industry is in there.
Yeah.
Like lobbying. Like to be fair, I'm still very surprised that we don't have lobbying legalized in India. Like we should be having
Lobbying
lobbying.
is definitely there, I would say.
It's not legalized. It's just like it's
yeah.
not legalized, because if you had 6,000 crores come in as electoral bonds to a particular political party, there is lobbying. Like you
Correct.
cannot be having
Not to
6,000
sound
crores.
controversial, but yeah, it is something that is
There is something
yeah.
happening. But what is wrong also? See, this is where I don't know why, we just get very much sketchy as soon as we say, oh, lobbying something is wrong.
No, actually, lobbying is considered legalized corruption. Actually, when you look at it, because they are gaining an edge over their competitors by lobbying.
Correct.
Because sometimes the lobbying would be not to benefit the industry as a whole. It would generally be
Certain
to benefit
monopoly
only that particular company or the group. So that is why lobbying in general cannot be something that is in favor of competition. Of there is a competition legislation in India, Competition Act 2002. many a time we have seen, backdoor lobbying that happens is never in favor of any particular industry. It is always for the benefit of that particular company because they're spending a ton of money to get something done. Because it is very clear that the benefit that they'll get is far above or far beyond or in multiples of what they've spent.
Correct.
So lobbying to a certain degree is not something that is acceptable in my personal view. But if it is something that benefits the country as a whole, definitely it is something that we have to look at. Like, for example, GPU manufacturing and silicon, the GPU and the other chipsets are the Foxconn investment and all was there, right? So those kind of investments, if some kind of lobbying helps those kind of decisions actually happen in India, that will be a very good initiative towards reversing the current account deficit that we talked about earlier.
Correct.
Because right now we are having double deficits. One is the current account deficit, and then there is a capital outflow, which is where the FIS are taking money out. So on both fronts, we are actually having a huge deficit, which is also contributing majorly to the INR depreciation.
And this is where we have to be a bit more dynamic and more receptive. Maybe it's time to change the way we do things. And when we say, like, for lobbying is one of those things, right? As you said, there's a lot of concerns. Like, it can be pretty much driven by the person who has money. Like, if you're the biggest company, you are going to do it. But on the high side of things also, isn't that exactly what happens right now? Even when lobbying is not there, if you are a big company, you are going to decide what is going to happen in that industry. It's just that it's
but
not
we
going
need
to be
competition. So there needs to be an authority that reviews each reform and sees that the smaller guy doesn't get hit. The smaller guy doesn't get pushed out of the business, because we need competition. We need all industry players to be equally affected by a change, because you cannot be benefiting one person. As I said, the PLI scheme is sometimes benefiting only the top players and not the bottom players. But if the bottom players are actually credible and they have proven their credibility through their operations and their the growth, I think they also should be considered, and everybody should have an equal voice before a certain change affects an industry. You cannot have a draconian change before, like I would have said some amendments and the changes that have been introduced by the government could have not been done at this point, because Iran war is not just the reason for this rupee depreciation. It has collectively led to this. The last 3 or 4 years, the changes, the amendments, the way in which the government has operated. I mean, I'm not blaming the government, but certain reforms have collectively, that may not have been the intention of the government, but collectively the outlook has been destabilizing in certain manner. And rupee depreciation is not just because of that. It is just it is also a reaction to the war and the rise in the interest rates in the US market. So that is also one of the major reasons why money is flowing out.
Correct. And talking about the small man or the smaller part of it also, we have been talking about people who are earning in crores, and we've been talking about people who are below the poverty line. But there is also a group of people who are salaried. And one of the biggest issues, I think, a person who is a young salaried or is the first time breadwinner for his family, is what is the split? Because a lot of people have already discussed about salary splits. They have talked about what you should have 10 to 15% in savings or whatever. Like, your liability should not exceed 40, or your liability should not increase 50. You should have this much amount in your runnings. But when you're young and you start earning big money, it's always a question of, like, what should I do? And then we talk about go and invest in mutual funds. That's something that you have to really sit down and study rather than just investing. Correct. So in your personal opinion, from what you have seen in your experience, if today a person gets his first salary, what would your advice be? Or what would you be advising Sanjay, the young Sanjay back in 2017, most probably, when you got your first salary? What would you have said? Like, what should you do with your first salary?
Now, that's a really good question and very relevant to this day and age, because I am really afraid that today's generation, the Gen Zs and the Gen Alphas, I'm not sure if they're actually, thinking about saving. Again, as you see, the reforms of the government, they have actually split the tax regime into two: old regime and new regime, where the new regime doesn't have any incentive for any kind of deductions. Earlier, you used to get deductions for life insurance investments. There was investment linked deductions that were there in the earlier era. But now the new regime is so attractive if you do a tax comparison, the tax computation under both the regimes, and if you look at it, new regime is always more beneficial 95% of the time. But there are certain areas or certain sectors of salaried employees for whom old regime will still be beneficial. But 95% of the time, I see that new regime is always more beneficial, which means you are no longer incentivized to invest in life insurance, health insurance, nothing. No donations, nothing. You are not. So naturally, a person who is not getting any direction, he would not be willing to invest in PPF or a public provident fund or any kind of NPS or nothing. He would not be having that saving mind at all. Because I myself, many of my clients are now asking me, do I need to invest in PPF now that I'm not getting any direction? Why should I do it? So that means earlier the people have been investing in this. They have been, habitually investing in this PPF and 5-year FDs and all these saving related investments with the mind that they will get some kind of deduction in tax. Now, when that has been pulled off the table, now naturally people are now starting to think of spending. They're not quite interested in putting something for long term. So that is one of the problems where the Gen Zs are also now. I'm hearing a lot of reports where all these policies of pay now, pay later, what is it? Spend now, pay later, buy now, pay later. That kind of BNPL concepts are there. So it's so easy. You don't even have to give anything. You just have to put your Aadhaar, PAN, and just at the flick of a button, it is done.
You have your credit
Then
line.
you don't even have to worry about paying anything now. It may be an iPad or an iPhone that is worth 1 lakh, 2 lakh. You don't have to pay anything. You just have to look at the EMI, which is 6,000 per month, right? So that is how money is just flowing out of the bank account. So my 2017 self did not have to worry about all these things because the internet was not so big and the social media was not so active. So it was much easier because we were all. It was not so easy for the industries and the businesses to influence the public and the young teenagers at that point because social media was not active. Now that social media is very active, our phone is the biggest distraction. Any injected marketing that the government, the business wants to do, they can do it. They can even reach. Already, all the businesses have your number with them. Yes. When you order something on something like Swiggy, Zepto, or Big Basket, the number is already there, and they already know what kind of food that you order, and that information can also be shared with the product owners also. Like suppose you are buying something
repeated.
So repeated buying can be influenced, and some particular geographical area can now be studied, and they can develop products in that front. So they can bring more products. Some community loves spicy food, they'll bring more. So that kind of issues are there. So injected marketing and targeted marketing is something that we are seeing now. So all these taken together, it's becoming very difficult for Gen Z and youngsters to save today. So my advice, my personal advice, it should not be taken as professional advice, but still, I would say start very early. If you're getting employed at 22, start at 22 or start at 23. If you want to splurge for 1 year, fine, but start as early as possible. 2020, if you're at 22, then by 23 you have to start saving. And the general thumb rule, I would say, is 40-40-20. Generally, that should be the rule. Where if you are taking something on EMI, if you're buy now pay later schemes, be sure that it doesn't exceed 40% of your salary. 30 to 40% is the max to max you can accommodate in your salary, because going beyond that, it's going to be highly inefficient and you're going to be in trouble after some time, because you're not going to be able to manage your investment as well as your daily expenses. It's very easy to buy an iPhone right now. A person having 25,000 salary can actually afford an iPhone because he will do buy now pay later scheme.
Correct.
Where the EMI is going to be 8,000. So what is 8,000 for a person who's earning 25,000? He will not even remember his rent. But it is only because you know how it feels on the first day of every month when the salary hits the bank account. You'll be rich. And after a few seconds, then new notifications will start hitting, ting, ting, ting. Rent has been deducted, EMI has been deducted, this, that, and then finally you'll be left with some 8,000 to 10,000 rupees left for the entire month. The month has not even started, but your money has actually reduced. Your entire salary has come down. So EMIs are something that are actually destroying the families and economies, because it has become so easy to buy anything that is totally out of our reach. Even I've seen a lot of people buying luxury cars and really top end vehicles as well, without
Because of
even
this.
being able to afford it in one shot.
It's more spontaneous bias than
Correct.
planned bias.
That
So
is
true.
this 40-40-20, 40% is the EMI maximum, max to max. All your fixed pay should be restricted to 40%. So if you're earning 10,000, maximum 4,000 should be your EMI. If you're earning 1 lakh, 40,000 should be your maximum, towards these kind of fixed payments. Remaining 40,000, you have to immediately invest in SIPs and other instruments, because that has to be something you do immediately. Because otherwise, if it remains in your bank account, it is very high tendency that you will start spending it and it will go out of your account very soon. So immediately, in the initial part of the month, you have to invest 40 into investments, maybe mutual funds. What kind of mutual fund is something I cannot say at this point, because it has to be based on market driven factors. So 40 has to go into investments, 40 has to go into, maximum 40 can go into EMIs and fixed pay, and remaining 20 is the percentage you can have for yourself for the daily expenses, eating out, movies, and other expenses that you may have. So this is how I would structure, I would suggest, but definitely it is very subjective, because if it's someone who is having a lower income or much higher income, maybe this may not work. Maybe you have to play around with this 40-40. Maybe you may not have a fixed pay. Maybe you may not have an EMI. Someone is staying in his own home or with his parents may not have this. So you have to decide for yourself. But the main point is minimum 40% of salary has to be invested, because the compounding effect will play a huge role in increasing the value of money to a certain extent. Because today we are looking at inflation. The CPI is around 6%. So, but the actual inflation that we are looking at, the health insurance and other things are all increasing at 10 to 14%. So actual inflation, I would say the real inflation on the ground is 10% minimum. So your money is depreciating at 10%. The 100 rupees you have today may not be worth 100 rupees after a year. So you have to invest it somewhere, and it should not be, even an FD is not enough, because it's only 6%, right? So your money is depreciating and the value increase is not offsetting the value depreciation if you put it in FD. So mutual funds and stock market is the go-to. And even if you put it in stock markets, don't be worried about the price dropping in the short term, because you are there for the long term. So if you put it in very good Nifty 50 stocks or Nifty 100, I am sure those companies are strong enough to weather the storm
at some point. Yeah, true.
So after 20 years, you may look back and say, oh, that is a good investment I had done. So you have to look at the financials, and you have to look at the company and how it has done over the last 5 years, 3 years, 2 years, 1 year, and how and which sector it is in. Because right now, I would say the premium sectors where the boom is supposed to happen is in the technology, the AI driven stocks are there. Right now in India, there are no AI driven stocks. So I would also suggest you have to look at US stocks where you can start investing. There are many AI unicorns and AI stocks that are actually getting listed and already listed in the many years before, and those are, you can actually now invest in those kind of stocks as well, and they're showing growth of around 30 to 40% as well. And you're looking at 8%, 5% growth in the Indian market, because they're very advanced in their this thing. Companies like Nvidia, I'm not suggesting Nvidia, but Nvidia has been phenomenally rising up in the last 5 years. They've shown so much of growth.
See, this is also like for the young, what you said is spot on. It's becoming so hard to save. It's very hard to save, because if I think about buying a phone today, I may be like, okay, I'm not going to buy it today, but I'm going to just search about it. The next time I open my system, I will get 4 EMI options. I will get if I use my HDFC or like whatever bank credit card, I will have 20% return.
Because it makes it look like 95,000 ka phone, you're getting it 85,000.
Correct.
So that looks that looks
It's
like
too
a
lucrative to say no.
Yeah, it's a steal deal. You might want to get into that action, and all your peers may be using iPhones. They will also be on EMI.
Correct.
So finally, you will be influenced by looking at oh, he's having iPhone. He's having iPhone 17 Pro Max Ultra. So all those things will influence you also to jump into that same pot, and finally you will also be stuck on that EMI loop.
Correct.
And that is one EMI.
And the fun part is what they start thinking is it's going to be in 24 months. So monthly 5,000 only, monthly 6,000 only. What we always forget is this is adding up.
Correct.
Because it's on a month base, you're not seeing it, but it adds up, and that 5K could have been invested in something better. There has been a point in our office itself where I was most probably holding the most old version of iPhone, because people are like, oh, I will buy iPhone 16 right now. Next year when iPhone 17 comes, you give that phone, you take the new one. all of a sudden your EMI is another 2 years. But that EMI cycle is ongoing.
Right.
And the same thing with credit cards also. A lot of time what happens is people will be like, yes, I'm only spending 2,000 rupees from my salary. Like if you go by the 20 rule, if you're getting 1 lakh, they're like, yes, I'm only spending 20,000
20,000.
rupees on my this thing. But what was your credit card bill? Oh, my credit card bill was 40,000.
That's
So-
where people go wrong. I personally believe credit cards should be used like debit cards.
Correct.
You cannot overspend because you have to look at whatever is there in your debit account balance. That is the only amount that you have to spend. You cannot overspend in your credit card and thinking you will somehow make up in the next month, because next month also you'll be in the same
It'll add.
situation. You cannot get committed to EMI. Don't buy anything which you cannot afford in your salary.
Correct.
Otherwise, you'll be, it'll be a big problem. Unless it is something very critical, like a health-related medical bill, something that is something you cannot avoid. That is
Correct.
something you can do a buy now pay later thing where you can. I have seen even people, going and eating out and then putting that on buy now pay later. Even there are many apps that can allow that.
Okay, I actually did not know that.
There are many apps. It is there even in US as well. So that kind of thing. When you start putting your daily grocery bill on buy now pay later, that is when shit has hit the fan.
Correct.
You have to be very careful.
Correct.
You have to start rethinking your finances, and you have to start doing. Maybe you can sell off your iPhone and maybe try to close the EMI. But you cannot be starting to put your grocery bill on your EMI this thing, because that's when things have gotten really serious, and you have to really start rethinking your lifestyle.
This is where also I genuinely don't remember who told me this, but the theory of what I need versus what I want, they're very, very two different
Correct.
things. And most of the time people are like, I genuinely, if I don't get this today, I can't survive, but it would be a luxury. So most probably what I have also suggested to people I've always talked to is anything which is a luxury, which doesn't stop your life as of today, should only be availed after you know that you have enough money if everything goes wrong.
Correct.
You have got money for your family or for your dependables. That's very important. You have got some money set aside so that if something goes wrong with them also, they can be covered. And then you're like, okay, now I can afford some luxury. And don't go all in. Like if you can, I think it was a very successful businessman who said, if you can buy a Audi, most probably buy a Mahindra. If you can buy a Mahindra XUV, most probably buy a smaller car, like maybe a Honda or something like a City or a
BYD.
bit less. Yes, correct. Buy a BYD. If you can buy a Swift, buy most probably a Nano. Don't buy one layer up,
Yeah.
buy one layer down. And the person who told me that is very successful. Like if he wants to buy most probably 3 BMWs in one go, he can buy that. But he's saying if most probably I can own a BMW, I would buy most probably an XUV or something. Or I would buy an Innova. I won't buy buy a BMW. But this concept is not there in the
Correct.
newer
But
generation of the
Sony,
spend.
I would like to add one more thing. This particular assets that we are talking about, they're all depreciating assets.
Highly depreciating.
So buying a depreciating asset on EMI is the worst thing anyone can do,
Correct.
because even if you start to, even if you sell it on second hand, the value may not be even able to, help you pay out this EMI.
EMI.
Pre-closing the EMI, the loan may not even be possible.
Correct.
Because if you have a small scratch, or if it gets dented somewhere, even if you try to sell it and then you try to get that proceeds to pay off the loan, it may not be possible.
Correct.
You'll be in trouble, because if some medical emergency comes, it
Yeah.
becomes a big problem. So you need to have a 6-month buffer at least in your life. So that is added to this 40-40-20. You also need to have a 6-month cushion where even if you
You have
get
the
laid
safety.
off, or even if something happens, because you may not be laid off. Sometimes you may be in an accident where you become immobile, and your job may be in such a way that you have to be physically present. Work from home may not be an option. So these things can actually totally overturn your life entirely. So this 40-40-20 is just one aspect, and second aspect is to have a life cushion, this 6-month buffer, because if your better half is not in a working position, you need to be able to at least weather the storm and get recovered, because by the time you're recovered, your company may not be lenient enough to keep you on. They may
Correct.
find a replacement. If it's
Correct.
for 2-3 weeks, they may not be able to willing to keep you on. They might find a replacement parallelly. They will keep you on. Finally, if they find that person is good, better, you will be shown
Correct.
the door.
Correct.
So these are risks that you have to be prepared for. So EMI is something that I would definitely say no, unless it is a need and not a
Highly.
want.
Correct. And that's also the point wherein I think knowing what is an appreciating asset and what is depreciating asset is very, very much required, because I've had friends who are very experienced and who actually know markets and stuff like that, trading. And they have told me this statement where they say that, oh, you know what, I'm going to build a house. it will appreciate. And I'm like, that's the dumbest thing that I've heard about. The moment you start building a house, I think that's the moment it starts depreciating. Think about the raw materials that you have brought. The moment it gets fixed into your house, they are depreciated. Like that product, if you want to return it to the company, they will not take it for the same value. So if you're going to build a house which is worth 40, or like, to be fair, the way we build houses in Kerala, I think rarely people build a house which is equivalent or somewhere comparable to their salary. We always build on the higher end of it.
It's a one-time expenditure and it's a lifetime.
Exactly.
It's where you're going to stay or where you're going to spend the rest of your life. So that's something that people justify. And I would not blame them, because that is something that
Correct.
we have to be.
But that's also a spot wherein, Sanjay, like people often get very much tangled in that thought, and people start investing for how it looks than comfort. Like when I walk into a house, what do I want? That's not what people talk to architects, right? Like if you talk to any architect, they'll be like, people are asking about what is the trend right now. To be fair, I actually don't care about what the trend is. I care about how I want my house to feel like, right? People are like, okay, I want an open kitchen. What do you cook the most? Non-veg. And you're going for an open kitchen. Like, do you really think that is the most appropriate thought after decision? Like stuff like that. But even on the fact that if you can own a 40 lakh, or if you think that your salary can withstand a 40 lakh house, you should actually build maybe 35 to 30. But people go, if I can basically have a, or if my current salary statements actually go for a 35 lakh house, we will build a 70 lakh ka house. But the moment that house is constructed and you start living into it, the amount of depreciation that house starts getting, plus you take a housing loan, which is another 7 to 8 percentage on top of it, right? And the 20 years that you have in front of you, you have most probably paid off another almost 30 to 40% of your actual principal value
As
interest. And at that point, you go ahead and try to sell that property with that house. Most of the people will say, I will pay you for the land.
Correct.
Nothing for
That's
the house.
where I would like to bifurcate these discussions on one thing. One is, if you're actually investing in a property, you should first ask yourself whether you're actually going to sell it off or whether you're going to actually hold it for the long term for your own use. If it's for something you are going to sell it off, taking a loan and then constructing it is not advisable. For someone who is having free funds lying with him, they are the people who actually look at constructing their own house. Or if you're able to get some low cost funds from some venue, then you can actually consider doing that. But if you're because building a house is not something like you can turn on a switch and it starts getting constructed in a week or in a 6 months or so. It has its own variables, because if something like a lockdown comes up, then it will get stalled, and your interest payments and your principal payments will start, your EMI payments will start, and then finally you may not even have money to pay it. And if the real estate market is also down, you may not be able to sell it to close out the loan. You'll be ending up paying interest on this dead asset for a long time, because you'll be waiting for a good value to come, which may never even come. At this economy and at this stage of the economy, I don't think we are in a position where we can predict when the real estate is still going to come up, because there are many aspects where the real estate is actually going down. So coming back to the question, if you are actually building it for your own use, I would not worry about depreciation, because when you invest into a property, there are two aspects in that property. One is the building and one is the land. Land is without a doubt appreciating asset, because in Kerala, the supply of land is very low and limited, and it is diminishing continuously. So when you are investing for your own use, I would look at it as a one-time life investments, and I would not have any, no holds barred kind of this thing, where maybe not over the top, but still to a certain extent, building a house for 35 is not something that is practically possible at this stage, because of all the labor costs and other things are very high. And we have to look at our needs. How big is our family? How many members are there? And what is our, our outlook? Do we need a garden? Can we manage with a small garden, or do we need a big garden? Do we need to be able to walk around the house? All these questions have to be asked. Then only you can decide, because house is one thing where you cannot compromise on the cost, because you cannot you cannot be willing to spend another 10 lakhs after 2 years and say I want to build this house, because then you have to do the whole investment again. You have to sell this off, stay in a temporary place somewhere else, and get the construction done again. So Those are things. So that is where this is one aspect where I would say,
Right.
yeah, that is where I would not be very strict on, it has to be based on your needs. But
Correct.
if you're a 3-person family, you cannot be constructing 4 BHK unnecessarily and wasting unless you have the free funds lying around. That is one thing. If you're buying to sell it off, then you need to have a major chunk of that funded from your own sources, because if things go south, if things don't work out as you planned, then you'll be ending up paying, you're ending up with a huge pile of loan on your hands,
Correct.
for which interest payments will get ballooned, and slowly it'll be getting out of hand.
True. That is actually true,
Yeah.
and a lot of the time that is also the reason why people get crushed again and again, again and
Yeah.
again by this EMI plus loans, because the principal doesn't move.
Correct.
It's always the interest that you're
Yeah.
buying off, and then even after 2 years, you look at, oh, I took 20 lakhs principal loan. How much is pending? It's still 19 lakhs, and look, hold on, I've paid far
Correct.
more than that, but it was just because of the interest being paid more than it, and that is why I have realized, like in the last few years, that whenever if you take a loan, please ask for like your schedule,
Correct.
like each
Very
month.
important.
You have to ask for your
Some
schedule.
banks may not even divulge with that information, but it is your right. And you have to keep, because I have seen a lot of customers and a lot of people, the bank will come to them with a paper directly. They'll come to their home, sir, I'll get it signed with you. They'll be very cordial with you, and they'll bring a pile of papers. You'll be signing everything. Maybe you'll be asking some questions, but they'll take everything back, and they may not even give you a copy.
Correct.
So one thing I make it a point is I definitely ask for a copy, or I'll be in a place where I can take a copy myself, and I'll get a copy for myself, because I need to know what I have signed.
Correct.
Finally, when things go south, if things go wrong, and they will say, sir, you had signed this
Sign this one
declaration, you
off.
had done this, you had given us this right, and all these things, and finally it will not work out for you. Even if you go for a legally
would
pursue
have
this
signed
issue,
something.
you would have signed something waiving your right.
Correct.
So take a copy of, first go through what you're signing, and then
Correct.
look at the schedule. He may be orally telling you it will be a 20-year loan, 5-year loan, 10-year loan, but look at the schedule. How does it look like? And what is the total interest cost that is going into
Exactly.
your schedule?
Exactly.
Because if you're feeling that you're paying so much and finally your loan is not going anywhere, that means there is some problem in the way in which the bank is appropriating your money against the loan.
Correct.
Because if it's as per the schedule should be 20-year loan, means 20-year schedule should be there,
It should be done.
where each in the initial months interest will be higher because principal outstanding is more.
Correct.
And once it comes down, it will be
It starts
tapering.
depreciating.
Yeah, it will be
Correct.
tapering, and towards the end, principal will be more and interest will be very low.
Correct.
That is how it is. It's like a inverted pyramid kind of thing when it comes to interest. If you are not careful with how you handle paperwork, you are going to be at the losing end. I've seen so many people who are actually crying. Finally, I paid for so many years, because finally, if it
it's still
doesn't pay, it gets classified as an NPA. He will never get a loan. His CIBIL score
Correct.
goes down the drain, and he's in so much trouble. So first, you have to look at the paperwork, get a copy of it. Before you sign, you have to go through it, and after you sign, you take a paperwork, because you have to compare finally if the interest cost appropriations are actually as per the schedule.
Correct.
Because if you don't have that, you will not be having anything to compare with. And banks will be saying, I'll give it, sir, I will send it. Then they'll take you for a ride.
Correct.
So before you sign, you are the king. After you sign, they are the king. You have to
Once
be
the
very
money is
correct.
dispersed, then
Dispersed,
everything.
then you are their slave.
Correct. And even knowing about this premature closing,
Yeah.
like what happens if I'm closing at this point, what happens if I'm closing at that point, because a lot of the banks, they just make it sound like, yes, sir, you can
They'll
do.
paint a very rosy picture
Correct.
before they sign, because I have seen many clients get the pre-closure debit of up to 60 lakhs because they close their cash credit account a bit early, or
And
without
they're-
some procedure. Yeah, because they don't even give. I've seen many banks don't even give the sanction term. Sanction letter is not even given to the customer, and customer is not aware that they have to ask for it. Sanction terms is something you as well as the bank will sign. Their authorized representative, maybe the bank manager or their RM, will be signing on the sanction terms, and you are actually required to have a copy of that, because only then you will be able to compare what are the sanction terms. Because what is a sanction term? Sanction term says the borrower should be doing this. They should not be doing this. There are mandatory covenants as well as mandatory negative covenants. Mandatory negative covenants, if you do this, then gone. Then we will
Take over.
call back the loan. That kind of rules are there. Only if you know what are the rules, you will be able to comply with them, right? Or
Correct.
you will be doing whatever you think is right, and finally they will say something and they'll say this is a non-compliance. Maybe their auditors will come and say this is a non-compliance, call back the loan. So those are things that will be a problem. So sanction letter should be asked for. You have to keep it in your file.
Correct.
I have seen many branches don't do that. They don't give it.
I think
It
there
is
should
very
be like,
unethical.
Correct. And there should be like this set of documents you always have with your hand. Like I personally always think that schedule of payment, sanction letters, your premature clauses. Like you would have the entire contract with you, but always highlight, okay, what is the clause at what point you can pay? Because
Correct.
even like paying one EMI extra every year can make a very huge dent to your total loan tenure and loan interest payment. But a lot of the people don't do it. And also it's just there is this false conception that it's becoming so easy to get a loan. Like I think on my phone I would get at least 5 messages every day. Pre-approved loan 2.5, pre-approved loan
5 lakhs,
3.5,
2 lakhs, 3
5
lakhs,
lakhs,
yeah.
2 lakhs every day you're getting it. And then especially when you're young and maybe you hit some kind of a stumble with finance, like okay, maybe I should take a personal loan.
So they
Personal
do get
loans.
a lot of business that way, because that is kind of a cold calling kind of thing. They're
Correct.
cold messaging everyone. I get at least 5 or 6 messages from many kind of finance companies, and they ask, sir, you have been approved. It's like I won the lottery.
Correct.
The way they open their speech or their conversation, they say, sir, you have been approved. You have been, you have won this kind of thing. And they make it sound as though it's some kind of a lottery that you have won. But finally, it's a loan. And loan
Exactly.
is where it entails a cost.
Exactly. And even while you're walking through shopping centers, I don't know if you have had this
Yes,
experience,
I have had it.
but
Credit cards. Especially
I'm
the
like-
airports.
I'm like, you can't be serious, right? Like you're making having a credit card or a loan is a very big financial commitment.
Yeah.
And people are in a different mood and you're walking through. And I can see people signing up also. And I'm like, there is no regulation. There is actually, so we have all these regulations saying that people should be made aware about this, that, but we can't also be dumb to say that a credit card application was started and ended in 20 minutes or 15 minutes. If a person has
So
to
now
go
it
through,
is that easy actually. Credit card application.
but how do we read the terms and conditions? Like there has to be a space wherein you're like,
now this is something that we can do, because practically end user license agreement is something that is there in many softwares. Similarly, for credit cards, terms and
Correct.
conditions will be there. If it is a downloadable terms and conditions, for people who are very busy, I would suggest that you can just upload it into some AI. It's a
And that-
public document, right? You
Correct.
can just ask them all the questions, please identify all the adverse features of
Correct.
this
That is
terms
true,
and
actually.
conditions. Yeah, you can do that, because I have been doing it. Because whenever you are, because even if it's a very popular and global software, reading their terms and conditions something because what if you don't align, if your thought process or ideology doesn't align with their terms and conditions, it's better you don't use that software.
Correct.
Similarly, this credit card, you can find out all negative factors in the terms, hidden in the terms and conditions easily by using a good AI.
Yes, true.
So that is one thing you can do. It should be downloadable as a PDF, or you can, if it's a written hard copy, you can just scan it and put it in the AI. So that is one way you can, complete the full reading in just 2 minutes or 3 minutes.
True.
It will
True.
show you 10 points. And if you feel that is there is a hidden clause or something, just leave it. You just tell them, I don't want it. That is how you can do it.
I think most of the times it's the adrenaline rush. I've got this 2 lakhs credit card. I've got this
Probably I have
30
seen
lakhs.
things is that this credit card may be having this airport, the lounge access, and they'll be
True,
traveling
true.
the next month. So they'll be in a hurry to just sign something with 2 times this airport lounge access will be there, right? So they'll be in a hurry to just take that credit card, whatever price, 500 rupees. But when you look at it, the economics actually work out, because you just have to pay 500 for that credit card. Joining fee is only 500. Lounge is around 1,000, right? So you get
So 2
one,
times.
1,000, 2,000. Some lounges even charge 3,000 also. So it actually works out. If you have to go there and actually get into the lounge, you'll have to pay that much. This is only 500. That is the way people think. But they don't know that, I have used some credit cards where paying the dues is very difficult. Sometimes you can get a credit card without even having a savings account with that bank.
Okay.
And you get the credit card, you spend money on that. Finally, when you try to pay, it is only to NEFT. NEFT means you have to have a net banking, you have to go log into it. Each time you have to pay the credit card bill, you have to log into it, you have to take this thing, add that as a beneficiary, and then only pay. They have made it very difficult.
So
They don't allow UPI. They have either it has to be from their own savings account with that bank, or it has to be from NEFT. NEFT, it's not something we can do every Tuesday morning. We need to have some free time, and we have to be remembering about it. So one thing I would say is don't go for check what are the rules, how it operates, and ensure that that particular credit card or that particular bank is having an auto debit facility. If you don't have an auto debit facility, don't go for it. Because I have seen a lot of people, even myself, I have missed even one payment, not because I didn't have money, because I forgot that was a date. Because in the rush of the moment and that particular time, like, it's a very small amount, but interest piled up like anything. In one installment, if you miss, the CIBIL score also gets affected, and interest
All of
is
a sudden
20
it's
to 40 to 60% also. It's a
I think it's
criminal.
based on the purchase type,
Correct.
the interest
The
type.
value of outstanding is also a major part that plays in the value of interest.
So we I don't know how long we have been talking about this, but we have talked about a lot of serious stuff, financial stuff, but also talking about you, Sanjay, as a person. You have been working for the last, I think, more than almost coming up to 10 years now,
Probably 10 years. Yeah.
2017 onwards. Like how have you seen the market affect you? Like, is it hard for you to make some spontaneous buying decisions? Do you buy yourself or do you spoil yourself to luxury, or do you go, no, my spending cap is over for this month, I can't do this?
No, I am not that strict, but I generally don't. I always go by my needs. I
Mhm.
never go for my wants. Every once in a while, I actually I will scroll through everything, but I'll never go for that plunge unless it is absolutely necessary. I would not say I'm frugal, but uh, quality of life is something that I am more focused
Okay.
on. I don't need to buy the speaker that is worth 50,000 or something, because unless I need it, so I
You
look
don't.
at the needs and my wants, and whichever aligns, then I try to go for it. And I do think of this, and once in a while, everybody have their cheat day, right? So whenever
Correct.
I feel that something is actually going to help me, or have more peace of mind, or I am going to be well off with that, definitely it is something that we have to do. Sometimes luxury also pays to
Correct.
keep our psychology in order. So that's how we look at
That's
it.
one theory that I always push for: the art of spending money to make money.
Correct.
Because sometimes you have to spoil yourself to also understand that you are not comfortable. Because a lot of time, what people do is they have a particular way of living, and they just take that to be the correct way of living. But
Correct.
there can be different ways of living also. You can have,
Correct.
like, people sometimes don't realize that traveling business class has its benefits. It's not
Correct.
just the luxury. You land within the next half an hour.
Correct.
You can actually be in a
Yeah.
meeting room
Yeah.
without having a baggy eyes or anything, and you're actually up and running for the next meeting. But till the point you don't travel in a business class for at least once, you don't realize it.
Yeah.
So I always believe, like, sometimes you do need to get a hit of luxury, but that should be your cheat day, as you said.
Yeah.
Do you remember what was your last most spontaneous expensive shopping that you would have done? Maybe
No, I do spend on the fabrics and clothes and everything are
okay.
there, but not like an outrageously high purchase is not something I've done. I don't do a spontaneous kind of
You're not
buying
into
is not
that.
something I do, because that's something that you'll regret immediately after buying. Maybe in a few days,
Mm.
if it's spontaneous, you will find some fault with it unless you look at it, do some research. If it's a big purchase, I definitely do a lot of research. I visit a lot of shops and then only I buy it. I don't know if it's a OCD kind of thing, but that's how I do it.
Did your course and your profession actually, in some ways, influence that
I'm
kind
not
of like
sure,
a
because I don't think this is something everybody do. But yeah, definitely it may have had it may have brushed up on me at some point. But it's just a personal thing that doing
you
something
do?
spontaneous may not help, or in the long term, it may not be helpful for us if we do without any research, because today we cannot trust any of the products that are in the market
Correct.
unless we look at other people's experiences. If it's a brand new product that just came into the market and I am extremely in need of it, then definitely we have to make an exemption. But otherwise, if it's something people have used, it never hurts to go through their reviews and only then
Correct.
make the spontaneous purchase. Even buying a car, actually, you never know if it's having an engine problem, if it's having a utility issue, if it's having a charge issue. We don't know. Only if you look at the reviews, we'll able to come
That's
up with a
actually true.
decision. So that's why I don't, for large amounts, I never go
You
with
don't
the
do spontaneous.
spontaneous.
Nah, that's totally fair. Maybe coming towards the last part of it, Sanjay, you have had a wonderful career so far, and you have got many more years to add to that career also. For someone young who is now thinking about finance, accounting, what's your opinion or your advice to someone who is coming into this industry? Uh, what should be their cutoff? What should they do research on? And the reason why I said cutoff is a lot of people come in with the dream of CA, becoming a chartered accountant, but fortune is not so good for everyone, right? So someone may be pushing it. They would have spent 6, 7, 8 years on the same course. At what point should they cut off? But parallelly also, how should they select, or how what should their research look like to know that I want to be in a finance background, or I want to be in accounting? Like, how should they know it? It can't be just like my dad is a CA, so I'm also being going to be a CA. How do they research, or what should they do to research and understand that I want to be in this industry?
No, definitely being a chartered accountant has its own benefits. It has a very wonderful profession, and a lot of scope is also still there. It's a very respected profession. Even if you go outside the country, there is a
Correct.
lot of a lot of doors open. If you are a person who has passed the CA exam in India, that is definitely there. But if you are looking at it from a student point of view, immediately after +2, you can go for the foundation, and then once you clear the foundation, you can write the intermediate, and then that is after which you can write the final and you become a CA. In between that, there is a 2 to 3 year training. Now
Okay.
it's 2 years, but there are talks that it may become 3 years in the coming future. So if you are someone who has written the exam multiple times and not passing, if you look at your marks, actually, if you are actually low down a lot, and even after repeated efforts you are not able to come up, then that is a point where actually you have to weigh your options, because you have your own personal compulsions at home. You may have your priorities. You may have to ask yourself whether I can afford to have another year or so, or another attempt or so on this, whether I can put full dedication on this. Am I doing my full capability? And even then it is, I am
Yes.
getting low marks. If that is the case, maybe, just maybe, I'm not demotivating anyone who is not passing, but maybe this may not be their cup of tea and they have to take a decision, because you cannot be endlessly writing the exam
Correct.
for long, and
Correct.
because you have a family and you have a life, you have an age. After a certain age, many other doors will close. Something like IAS or civil service
True.
or something, some other profession, they have their age limits, right? That they have their entry barriers. Beyond a certain age, 28, 27, you may not be able to write those exams. So if you are too late in that decision of exiting the CA course, it will be too late for other jobs. So then you will be finally be pushed down into certain
Will be trapped in some ways.
menial
Yeah.
areas of profession, which may not be even enough for you to come up in life.
True.
So that is where you have to take the decisions first and put your dedication entirely. If you're past foundation with more than 250 marks, I feel you will be a good candidate to pass CA very easily if you are putting full efforts on it. More than 250 marks in entrance is something that is good in foundation. Intermediate also, if you have passed with more than 220 marks or something, then it's also good. So it's all depending on subjective things. If you are a rank holder in +2, that doesn't mean you will pass CA
Correct.
very easily.
Correct.
Opposite also, if you are just 50%, if you gain
can
just
get good.
50% in +2, you may pass CA very easily. So marks in +2 and 10 thus has no relation. It all depends on how well you can sit and study. And for those who are actually thinking what to do, even if you're not doing CA, if you're actually looking at, because now AI has actually disrupted the whole industry.
Correct.
A person who is doing web designing, an expert in web designing, an expert in ad development, ad designing, they were all experts and pioneers in their field at some point. But now that job can be done in a matter of rupees, or even matter of 1,000 rupees by using AI.
Correct.
And it does a much better job, and we can do any number of iterations of changes to it in a matter of minutes. So that way the IT industry has been disrupted. So I would say anyone who is not looking at a finance field, or anyone who is confused as to what to do, you have to actually do your own bit of research, because there is a magazine that is issued by the World Economic Forum, and they always, every year, they publish a magazine where they identify which sectors are
Sort of.
which jobs are going to perish in the coming years, and which jobs are actually going to be relevant and going to stay the test of time even after the advent of AI. So AI has already come, but even after 5 years, 3 years, the fully trained AI, even after the AI is in the picture, some jobs may still be there. Something like cyber security, something like tech security, and many other jobs are there, which will still be relevant in the coming day and age. So we have to look at such magazines, and we have to identify areas where we'll be able to add value even when the AI is there. So that is how we have to look at it. We cannot simply do BTech and then start going for software, and that's not going to help you, because
Correct.
you might be actually ending up helping an AI-driven company develop their own AI, and finally they will lay you off.
Correct.
So because that has happened in so many cases, because as I said, Philippines has had their own call center where they fed all the data for the last 20 years to the AI companies, and they developed their own customer care AI bot, and then they finally booted them out, and they started their own AI driven platform.
Correct.
Customer care platform. So we have to be very careful, because a person who is just entering the college and other higher education arena, you have to be very good in your research and start to do a research by looking at such World Economic Forum magazine and try to select some areas which are going to be relevant. When
Correct.
somebody is coming to CA, even then it is something you have to look at, because you have to stay relevant. You have to upskill yourself and be relevant even after, because some certain areas of our CA profession can be automated using AI at once it reaches that level. When the mistakes are down and it has become well trained with all the AI, agentic AI and all, there are certain things that can be automated. So we should not be replaceable at that point. So that is something we have to think up. We have to look at what areas we can develop and where we can polish ourselves and be more relevant. So that way we can insulate
100%.
ourselves from the issue of AI, because AI is not going to perish. It is going to improve and it is going to replace a lot of jobs. We have to look at how we can be, adding value to the AI
Correct.
or to any value chain that is there in India.
I think with AI, one of the most popular statement that I saw was AI is not going to uh, eliminate any jobs. What AI is going to do is it's going to change the way the job was done. And when the way a job was done is changed, there will be people to maintain that also. When horses were replaced by cars, instead of people who used to drive around horses and feed them, you had people who are driving cars, you had people who are mechanics to that cars. When we started moving towards more helicopters and planes, there were people who are flying them, there were people who are maintaining them. So whenever technology has made a move to the next branch, there's always been humans to also maintain it. You can't have AI
Yeah,
to
that is a
do
very good
everything.
point. But we are now at that stage where any automated process requires a supervision from an actual human person.
Correct.
But that is because AI is still at its infant stage.
Correct.
It is going up rapidly and at a very huge scale. And in 4 or 5 years' time, I'm sure AI will be at such a stage where it will be having a very large
Self-healing.
scale of accuracy, and it may not even require a supervision. And it may be able to identify its own exceptions and
Correct.
errors, and it will be able to flag it to some person, and at that point you can rectify it together.
Correct.
I even saw one case where in the West there was one surgery done on a pig, which was entirely done by robotic hands and AI driven brain. It was
Right.
not handled remotely. It was
Okay.
fully done by AI, where the pig had a cut. It was a dead pig. It was on a dead body of a pig on which there was a cut, and it was stitching the wound up.
Wound up.
It was entirely
Correct.
done by AI. It was done very accurately. So
Correct.
we are now in a stage where AI is not just replacing IT, AI is also
Every
replacing
sector.
doctors as well.
Correct. But then with that AI, we would have data centers coming in.
Correct.
We would
Correct.
have, see, that's a space wherein the professions would change.
Correct.
So rather than being a coder, you may be maintaining the data centers. You
Correct,
may
but
be
it would
doing
be a
something.
low-paying job as well.
Correct.
The scale, but I think the the scope now has shifted to management level jobs. If you are managing a company, if you are at the top level, or if you are the heading the company, there I think AI is not something that can strategically replace a person. So if you are in a management position, I think that is where we should be more focused
For
on.
now,
If
we are safe.
for a youngster, we have to be more focused on becoming a someone who will be managing a company, because strategic decisions are something that cannot be replaced by AI, because it is so dynamic. So
Correct.
that is where we have to be very sure. Somehow, sadly, India has never been able to predict
Crack.
this, the boom of AI. Even in 2016, US has been working towards building AI. I remember one interview in which our Jensen Huang, NVIDIA CEO, was telling how Elon Musk had pitched him for one of his latest AI chip. That is way back in 2016 or 17. He was the only customer, and nobody else was interested. And Elon Musk took the plunge for his non-profit organization, and he was joking about how he thought he will not get any money for it. So finally,
But
that
no.
was a bygones. Now his auto-driven vehicles are also hitting. I mean, they've been very popular, and now other players are also come up.
Correct.
So they have been thinking about AI way back, almost 10 years back. We have started thinking about AI only in 2021-22 after COVID,
Correct.
and by which time it was too late. We don't have even
We are
one.
developing and
Yeah,
the
we don't have our
manufacturing.
own. Even though there are small cases where we have seen some in-house AI, development, it is not influential at all, and the government has also not done much to incentivize such in-house AI models as well. Data centers are also something which I think our Reliance and other companies are also thinking of. It is good, but I have seen that data centers in the US, like Memphis and other places, the area around the data center has a lot of impact because the sound coming from the processing
Okay.
devices, it is so severe that you'll have ear
Earplugs.
problems, as well as the water starts getting polluted. So
Okay.
there are a lot of issues that if you research into how data centers affect the environment, it is very difficult. You cannot be having data centers in a populated place. So wherever data centers are coming in India, people are celebrating. But actually, in my view, data centers are nothing but we are just building infrastructure for a foreign company to run
Correct.
their technology at our cost of our resources.
It's pretty much like how people used to dump
Correct.
e-waste.
Correct. So
Used
that
to
is,
bring
we have to
e-waste
look.
and
We
dump
cannot
it.
celebrate when Starlink comes and offers their services in India. We are celebrating. Oh, Starlink aa gaya. But the problem is, why are we not having our own satellite-driven internet? Why are established companies? BSNL is supposed to be the entry barrier for all these kind of things, but we are not seeing anything. They are always
BSNL
late to
is
the game.
still, I think, struggling to implement their 5G.
5G.
So
And companies like Reliance are so. I mean, I'm sure they are also preparing their own venture into all this, but coming the arrival of Starlink into India has been a big rejoice and celebration, but I feel that should
should
not
have
be the
been
thing we are
us.
celebrating. It should have been us, and we should have been first in the game. New Zealand, the country which is so small compared to India, is having their own satellite internet, which they are ready to offer to the whole world. So we are too late to the game. Even France is having their own AI. It's called Mistral. They are having their own
Okay.
indigenous AI, which they don't want to share their information with companies like Google and OpenAI.
So they're using
They
their
are
own.
they using their own, but we don't have anything of our own. That's the problem. So we are too late in the game, and
We're dependent now. That is the next
the
issue.
problem is we are suffering from brain drain, where our entire brains are going out the country and nobody's returning back. And if I looked at China, how they are handling it, they are actually encouraging all their people to go out and experience the world, learn everything from places like US and Canada, and then finally they have a system. Have you heard of sea turtles? How they
No.
operate?
Yeah. They is it like they lay their eggs?
No,
and
they
then
actually they are born in a certain beach.
Okay.
In certain beach where they're born, they actually migrate to the whole world. They travel around the world, and finally, once after certain age, they actually return back to the beach where they were
okay.
born. So China has been using this sea turtle kind of strategy, and they try to attract their talents who have migrated outside back to China by offering them a lot of research grants and a lot of tax incentives and lot of incentives and other benefits that they will offer to these particular people to come back to China and
then
implement something indigenously. That's how they have actually grown so much. They have got so much of excess capacity. They can actually cater to the entire world. We don't even have capacity to cater to our own needs.
Correct.
So that is where China has been playing the long game. I'm actually admired, but we are saying China plus one. India has to become China plus one. China plus one is something we cannot even imagine right now because they are so far ahead in the
Their
way in which they
strategies
develop
and
technology.
the way they have rolled out things also has always been futuristic.
Yeah.
Like China is way ahead of the game, and
Correct.
if we think that we are going to be somewhere competitive,
I don't
with them,
think at the
that's
stage in which we are, going forward, I think we have a lot of improvement to do before we can even think of China plus one.
Correct.
Too far ahead. We can get there, but a lot of reforms are required. A lot of policies have to change. We have to incentivize our manufacturers, do more value manufacturing where we can add value to some other economy. We are not manufacturing what other countries want. We are manufacturing what is beneficial for us.
Correct.
That's the problem.
That is true. That is true. Now, Sanjay, we can go on talking about finance and how the world revolves around us. But unfortunately, due to time, we would have to cut short. But when we cut short, also, one thing that I've always admired about you has been your very broad understanding about things that are happening around us, which influence somehow everything that happens around us will have a financial implication. So, for someone who is not from a financial background but wants to have a healthy saving, wants to be successful in their financial or wealth management, which is a very, I think, good statement of how they want to be at. What would your 2 or 3 mantras be for someone who wants to have a very decent wealth management, uh, but is not from a finance background? What would your suggestions be?
I think basically you have to look at how much time you're having per day to spend on all this. Because if you are employed and you're having a really tight schedule, I would say just go for SIPs in a very balanced, direct investment, direct growth plans are there where there is no commissions and all in between.
Hmm.
Try to look for mutual funds and other things which are having direct growth. That tagline, direct growth, will be there in some mutual funds. So go for that. Put it in SIPs so you can just invest and forget. And once in a month, just review how the investments are doing. If it's really going down, maybe you can realign it, sell it off, absorb the loss, and invest in something which is look for areas of areas like AI technology and such kind of like semiconductor, such kind of markets like green energy kind of,
Futuristic.
futuristic as well as green energy kind of markets, mutual funds that are catering to these kind of areas. And you have to look at it once in a month. You can review your investments and see if any mutual funds are doing really badly, badder than expected. Maybe sell them off, absorb the loss, and invest it in something that is doing good. But you have to look at what are the shares in which these mutual funds are invested. If all the mutual funds are saying different names and finally it is all in Infosys and certain companies, then that's not
True, that is actually
diversifying
true.
your this thing. Because if one of the companies goes down, because these
It will impact.
technology companies can be affected very easily. If there is a new legislation that comes up in US, all these BPOs will get impacted. So you have to diversify by looking at the underlying investment or the companies in which it is investing. That has to be different. And I think SIP is the main thing we have to look at. Put something in FDs as well, and do get a health insurance,
That
because
is actually very
one health
important.
insurance is
True.
one medical issue is enough to actually wipe you out entire savings. And finally another one that comes in your, if you are having a medical issue and you spend a lot of money, your savings are depleted. Second issue, by some unfortunate reason, your better half or your children are getting affected. Again, another medical issue comes in the immediate short term. You'll be in big
True.
trouble.
That
So
is
you need
actually
to
true.
have a 6-month buffer, the 40-40-20 rule, 6-month buffer, as well as take a health insurance. And at some point when you're able to, do buy a term insurance as well if your better half is not working, because in that case you can
We are
actually,
covered.
yeah,
We are
we are
covered.
covered, and should be enough to actually help them survive the until they can find some way to get back on their own feet, or maybe can survive the entire till their children are employed by
Fully
themselves.
sustained.
Yeah,
No, I agree. So, Sanjay, wrapping up our entire session, I really want to thank you, first of all, being at Part to Peak, but also I really hope we can sit down when the economy is in a far better state. We are not talking about how to survive the current economy, but we would be talking about what is next. Like what would be driving us more money? What would be driving the economy up? That is the conversation that we should be having. Hoping that our economy can boom back as
I'm
soon as
sure.
possible, and INR can be finally up against the other currencies of the
I
world.
really hope so.
I really hope so too. And we can start traveling, we can have fuel as much as we want, but also that the global economy or the global geopolitics starts stabilizing to a point wherein we don't have a war at least for 6 weeks in a go. That's what we should hope right now, because I think for the last 8 to 9 months we have had one, like at least a
One war or
minute
the other.
war every 6 week, every
Yeah.
6 week. So let's hope that geopolitically we stabilize. Let's
Yes.
hope that our economy stabilize. But also, I really hope that you have a wonderful career ahead of you. You're so young in your career and you're already
Thank you
so
so much.
established and so stable in what you do. So I really hope that happens. And for people who are thinking of going into accounting, who are thinking about going into finance, please do understand the fact that someone like Sanjay, if they're doing what they're doing currently, is because of the time and money they invest to upskill themselves, to keep yourself relevant, to know that what you have learned is not enough. You have to keep on learning. That is the most important factor, because a lot of the time, what people think is 5 years of CA is done. After that, it's all
Yeah.
golden days. You have your sticker on your cars, you have your sticker on your offices, you're done.
That's
But
not enough.
correct. Someone like Sanjay spending so much time to upskill, and you can clearly understand that when we are having a conversation with you. So please make sure when you're making a career choice going into finance, as he said, think about AI around you, think about the time and money you want to invest, but also think about, is this what you want to do? Once again, thank you, Sanjay, for being
Thank you,
on Path
Sony, for
to
having me
Peak.
here.
And we
It's a pleasure.
sure would love to have you back in a better economic state to talk about all the green and happy parts of economy that we have around us.
This is such a privilege and pleasure for coming here and getting on your show. And I really hope this really picks up for you. And I'm sure you're doing a great job by covering so many topics and such random topics that are really relevant for our life. And you're bringing really good guests as well. So I really wish you as well the best of luck, and I hope you scale great heights, and you really do
And
bring
you
a
would be a
change.
guest when we do that also,
Yeah,
right?
I hope.
And as
Maybe.
the last part of it, Sanjay,
Yeah.
what we have started doing something, and one of my personal favorite authors, Simon Sinek, I know it's very weird of us to be still giving hard copy books to our
That's a
guests when
really
they come,
good.
but I'm still old in that ways wherein I genuinely love having books on my shelf. So a small token of appreciation from Path to Peak. It's Leaders Eat Last by Simon Sinek, one of my personal favorite
Favorites.
authors. If you have read the book,
I'm not.
okay, then
Thanks.
I'm just going to hand it over to you. But once you read it, also one thing that we would really love to promote is hand it over to the next person that you think would benefit from the
Okay.
book. Because this is some culture that we really want to promote, where
Okay.
we are not just giving money to people, but we are also passing on things that we think is useful. So just giving you this book as most probably a
Thank
token
you
of
so much,
appreciation
Tony.
for being on the show.
I'll
Have a
definitely have a
read.
read it. Yes, definitely.
Yes, and
Sounds really interesting.
it like to be fair, it did influence me in a lot of ways that I have been operating in management roles and stuff. And Simon Sinek, on a personal note, also, I just love reading him and hearing to him. Also, very good person to follow, most probably. But once again, thank you, Sanjay, for being on the show.
Thank you so much,
And we
Tony.
will see you soon on Path to Peak.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so much. Thank you.